Our female lead spent her childhood being abandoned by everyone. Her parents died. Her relatives bullied her and passed her from house to house. And every home she entered eventually threw her out. By the time she turned 12, Layla had already learned one painful truth. No home ever lasts forever, until one day. A quiet gardener brought her to live in a vast forest estate called Arvis, but living in his forest would lead her to someone far more dangerous. For the first time in her life, Layla found something that never abandoned her. The birds. She spent her days watching them, studying them, even climbing trees just to see their nests. But the man who ruled that forest loved hunting them. And one summer, the Duke of Arvis finally noticed her. So grab your popcorn because we're in for one hell of a story. Let's dive in. Years earlier, 12-year-old Layla Llewellyn sits alone on a train, holding tightly to the memory of the last promise her parents ever made to her. They had promised that when spring arrived and the flowers bloomed, they would visit the park together. But spring never came again. And that promise became the final warmth she carried before her life changed forever. After losing her parents, Layla is left completely alone in the world. She slowly becomes used to moving from one relative's house to another. In her aunt's home, the other children bully her until bruises appear on her skin, while the adults pretend not to see. Her uncle's temper often explodes, especially after he loses money gambling. In another household, Layla humbles herself and promises to obey every rule, willing to do anything just to stay. But even then, she is sent away once again. Another relative rejects her simply because she is a girl, claiming she would only grow into a burden. And so she keeps moving from place to place, learning that no home is ever permanent. Over time, being abandoned begins to feel normal, even when it comes from her own mother. Eventually, one relative refuses to keep her but hands her a small piece of paper with a single name written on it. They tell her to go to Hessen in the Berg Empire and find someone named Bill Remmer. That name becomes her only hope. Layla boards another train, leaving behind the city where she was born and raised. When she finally arrives in Hessen, she feels a strange sense of familiarity. This is her father's birthplace, and she feels relieved that she can still speak the local accent. For a brief moment, memories of the days when her family once lived happily together pass through her mind. While searching for the address, Layla approaches a postman and asks for directions. The man reads the name written on her paper, Bill Remmer, and tells her to follow him, since he is already heading there. As they walk through the estate grounds, Layla notices the grand mansion of Arvis Estate, home of the powerful Herhart family. She wonders what kind of life Bill Remmer must live if he works as a gardener in such a magnificent place. Finally, she stands in front of him. Nervous and uncertain, she confirms his name and introduces herself as Layla Llewellyn. Before she can properly explain why she came, the postman hands Bill the letter that had been sent with her. The letter reveals everything. Layla is the daughter of Albert Llewellyn. After her mother ran away with another man, Albert fell into alcoholism. He eventually became ill and died. Since then, Layla has been passed between relatives who treated her poorly. The sender admits that their own family is too poor to take care of her. Among all the remaining relatives, Bill is the only one who might be able to take responsibility. Still, the letter makes it clear that he is free to refuse and send her to an orphanage instead. Bill is completely caught off guard. Although they are related, he never even knew Layla's father. Divorced and already struggling with money, he suddenly finds himself facing a responsibility he never expected. But when he looks at the small, thin girl standing in front of him with only a single suitcase, ignoring her becomes impossible. Layla quietly tells him that she will soon turn 12 and that she can read and help with chores if necessary. After finishing his work, Bill brings her to his home. The quiet house immediately shows that he lives alone. He gives her some food and watches as she eats. Her appetite is small, but he insists that she finish the meal. When he asks if she feels afraid, Layla explains that he doesn't shout or hit her, and that he feeds her well. Her simple gratitude unsettles him. It makes him realize just how little kindness she has known in her life. Even though his finances are tight, he begins to seriously think about what it would mean to let her stay. For now, he tells her to remain indoors until her living arrangements are decided. The next morning, Layla shyly asks if Bill slept well. He answers warmly. When she sees him preparing breakfast, she quietly offers to carry the dishes to the table. After they finish eating, she thanks him sincerely. Bill encourages her to eat a little more, and for the first time, a small, satisfied smile appears on her face. Before long, news begins spreading throughout Arvis Estate that Bill is raising a young girl. The maids whisper among themselves with curiosity and doubt. Bill has lived alone for years since his wife passed away, and old rumors about his late wife's inability to have children begin to resurface. Many of them begin to wonder the same thing. How could a man like Bill possibly raise a child? One maid suggests that Bill might actually be better at raising a child than they think. After all, he has a natural talent for nurturing flowers. He is the best gardener at Arvis estate, and even the great lady of the household has recognized his skill. Still, others quietly disagree. Flowers and children, they argue, are not the same. Meanwhile, Layla slowly becomes familiar with the estate and the people who work there. One day, she offers a maid a small bundle of flowers she picked herself. In return, the maid gives her a few cookies. Layla thanks her politely. Whenever anyone asks Bill about the girl, he simply answers that he will think about it. He makes it clear that she cannot stay forever and that he still needs to decide what to do with her. As spring arrives, it becomes a common sight to see Layla walking beside him in the gardens. She helps with small tasks and quietly learns from him. Even so, many of the employees still believe Bill is only suited to care for flowers, not a child. Soon, visitors begin appearing more often. One person brings leftover cookies and bread from a tea party the night before. When Bill protests that he does not like sweets, the visitor reminds him that they are meant for Layla. Gradually, he realizes something strange. People seem to use Layla as an excuse to visit his home. One person brings clothes, another brings books. Even ladies who have never visited before suddenly begin stopping by. Some show up without any clear reason at all, and Bill finds the whole situation slightly troublesome. One lady laughs and explains the reason. Layla is beautiful, kind, and polite, the kind of child who naturally draws affection from others. She says it is delightful to watch the girl run through the forest and gardens like a small squirrel. She also points out that it has been a long time since the Duke's territory felt this lively. Then she adds something surprising. The young Duke himself was once just like Layla when he was a child. Suddenly, the lady notices Layla climbing a tree and gasps in shock. Bill calmly explains that someone once taught her how to climb and that it can be a useful skill. The lady strongly disagrees. A girl, she argues, should be treated gently like a flower, not raised in such a rough manner. But Bill simply replies that Layla will be perfectly fine as long as she eats well and sleeps properly. When the question of Layla's future comes up again, Bill falls silent. That silence leads everyone to assume the same thing, that she will eventually be sent to an orphanage. Yet in his heart, Bill carefully considers where she might go without being hurt again. Soon summer arrives, and under Bill's quiet care, Layla continues to grow. The forest changes day by day. Plants begin to bear sweet fruit, animals wander deeper through the woods, and warm winds move through the trees. Sometimes Layla sits near the Shulta River, watching sunlight ripple across the water. In those moments, she feels completely free. The nightmare of her past life in La Vida slowly begins to fade. She often climbs into her favorite tree and writes in her notebook, carefully recording everything she sees and feels. She writes every day, wanting to preserve these memories in case life becomes difficult again. When she finishes, she returns home with a quiet sense of peace. One day, she notices Bill preparing to leave and asks where he is going. He tells her they need to go into town and that she should get ready. Layla's expression drops slightly, but Bill reassures her that they are only going to buy new clothes. With the Duke of Arvis returning soon, it would not be proper for her to greet him dressed the way she is now. Along the way, Layla asks Bill about the Duke. Bill explains that the Duke spends most summers at Arvis and is returning now that the season has ended. He casually adds that even though the Duke is 18, he still attends school. Layla looks surprised by his age. Bill then mentions something even more remarkable. The Duke inherited his title when he was the same age as her. At last, the day of the Duke's return arrives. The young lord steps down from his carriage as the estate staff greet him respectfully and guide him toward the mansion. Another carriage waits nearby, and someone comments that his mother still worries too much, believing automobiles are dangerous. But the Duke seems unconcerned. After all this time, he appears perfectly content to travel in something a little more traditional. At the mansion, the employees stand neatly in place, ready to welcome the Duke properly. Everyone waits attentively as preparations are made. Watching from the side, Layla wonders why the atmosphere feels so tense. The workers all seem nervous, standing straighter than usual. A maid nearby notices Layla's new dress and compliments her. The comment draws a small, shy smile from the girl. Soon, the Duke finally arrives. His grandmother greets him first, embracing him warmly. His mother follows, smiling as she remarks on how much taller he has grown since the last time she saw him. As they walk further into the mansion, Layla quietly notices something strange. No one else greets the Duke. Bill explains the reason calmly. The formal welcome will take place the following day. On the walk back, Bill casually mentions something else. The Duke often visits the forest. If Layla wants to continue exploring there, they can simply ask for permission. He also mentions that the Duke enjoys hunting. This surprises her. She asks why anyone would hunt when the mansion already has more than enough food. Bill explains that for nobles, hunting is simply a pastime. Among all animals, birds are considered the most difficult and interesting targets. Layla quietly hopes the Duke does not enjoy hunting too much. Bill realizes he may have said something a young girl should not hear and changes the subject. But Layla keeps thinking about it. A week later, she walks through the forest again, listening to the gentle sounds of nature around her. Then she notices something exciting. The eggs she had been watching have finally hatched. The tiny birds are adorable. Layla carefully observes them, noting that they must wait for their mother to return with food. The sight reminds her of something from her childhood. The time she once asked her own mother if she had to wait for her before eating. Her mother had comforted her warmly. For a moment, the memory lingers. Then suddenly, a larger bird appears. Layla assumes it must be the mother returning, so she quietly climbs down from the tree to avoid disturbing them. She wonders if the little birds will soon learn how to fly. She can't wait to tell Bill about it. But just then, she hears something. Through the trees, she spots someone approaching on horseback. Layla hopes the rider will simply pass by. Instead, he stops. The man dismounts and rests beneath the very tree where she had been sitting. Layla watches carefully from above, almost losing her balance before steadying herself. Then the man suddenly raises his gun and aims directly toward the tree. Fear rushes through her. She quickly speaks up, explaining that she only waited for him to pass before climbing down. The man asks who she is. Layla tells him her name, jumps down from the tree, and runs. Soon she finds Bill nearby. He notices her immediately and asks what happened. Breathless, Layla explains that she met a tall man in the forest, a man with piercing blue eyes and a voice that reminded her of a waterfowl's feather. Bill chuckles softly. It becomes clear what happened. Layla had just met Duke Matthias von Herhart hunting in the forest. Bill reassures her that there is no need to worry. She will probably see the Duke many times while exploring the woods. But before they can continue walking, they hear her name called again, followed by a loud gunshot echoing through the forest. Layla freezes in shock. Bill gently calms her and tells her they should head home. Because the man she saw is no ordinary noble. Matthias von Herhart is the heir to one of the most respected families in the empire. Apart from the royal family itself, few names carry more influence than the Herharts. He moves with the elegance and discipline expected of the highest aristocracy. To many people, he is considered the perfect successor of the Herhart bloodline. Everyone around him admires him. Everyone except Layla. Because on that day in the forest, she saw something different. She watched as bird after bird fell under his aim. To him, the smaller the bird, the more difficult and more interesting the target. Later, when Layla returns to the nest she had been watching, she notices something heartbreaking. The mother bird is gone. Without her, the fragile chicks have died. Quietly, Layla gathers them and buries them herself. In her mind, she gives the Duke a new nickname: the Slayer of Beautiful Birds. Later, Layla sits on a small mat beneath a tree, deep in thought. She wonders if she too might one day be left alone like those birds. Nearby, Bill works under the hot sun. Whenever Layla tries to help him, he gently tells her to rest on the mat instead. If she gets hungry, she can eat the peaches beside her and come down when he calls. Reluctantly, she follows his advice. Not long after, a boy passing by notices her sitting there. He stops and greets her politely. Curious, he asks if she lives there. Layla nods and explains that she stays with Uncle Bill. The boy then asks if Bill is scary. Layla shakes her head and she reassures him that he is not. Layla asks the boy if he lives there as well. He explains that he is only visiting. His father is the family doctor and has come to examine Duke Matthias von Herhart that day. For a moment, silence settles between them. The boy then asks her age. Layla answers, and he smiles, saying he is 12 too. He comments that she seems small, but Layla quickly points out that they are about the same size. He laughs and explains that he is actually the tallest boy in his class, though he still feels small compared to Uncle Bill, who seems taller than every adult around him. The two continue chatting comfortably. The boy remarks that the shade under the tree is pleasant and cool. Layla wonders if he is reluctant to leave. Without saying much, she picks up a small knife, cuts a peach in half, and offers him a piece. He gladly accepts. After a while, he notices that she looks a little sad and asks why. Layla tells him about the Duke hunting birds for sport. The boy says that hunting is common for nobles, but he quietly admits that he feels sorry for the animals and has no interest in doing such things himself. Hearing that, Layla silently decides that he must be a good person. She offers him another slice of peach. He accepts it and comments on how sweet the fruit tastes. Soon, his mother calls out to him from a distance, saying it is time to leave. Before going, he introduces himself properly as Kyle Ettman. Layla introduces herself in return, and the two shake hands. Kyle smiles and says he enjoyed meeting her. He promises that next time they meet, they should play together again, and that he will bring her something delicious. As he runs back toward his mother, Layla quietly wonders if they will truly meet again. After all, she may not stay at Arvis forever. Kyle's mother notices Layla sitting beneath the tree and asks who the girl is. Kyle explains that they are the same age. The woman studies Layla briefly before turning away. Not long after, Bill calls for Layla. She runs toward him, her small footsteps barely making a sound. Bill asks if she is hungry. Layla quickly tells him everything she has eaten that day. She also mentions that she met a boy earlier. As they walk back together, they suddenly come across the Duke and his men, who are discussing their recent hunt. The sight makes Layla feel uneasy again. Bill greets the Duke respectfully, mentioning that it has been some time since they last spoke. He then apologizes and explains that Layla has been staying at Arvis for the time being. Although he has already asked permission from the two duchesses, he felt it would be improper not to inform the Duke as well. One of the men asks if she is the girl they saw in the forest earlier. The Duke remembers the child perched in the tree. He simply nods. With that, the group continues walking. Layla watches quietly, her eyes fixed on the bird one of the hunters carries. She remains lost in thought until Bill gently reminds her that it is time to go home. Back at the mansion, a young noble girl named Claudine von Brandt sits at the table, sighing with boredom. She complains that life there has been lonely. Someone suggests that she play with the boys, but Claudine protests, saying they behave as if she does not exist. Her mother agrees that it must be difficult since Claudine has no friends her own age. Suddenly, Claudine asks about a girl she saw earlier. She insists that she wants to play with her. At first, her mother refuses, explaining that the girl is an orphan from abroad and not meant to be her playmate. But Claudine continues to insist, arguing that playing with the girl would be far more interesting than playing with a puppy. Her mother looks at her in disbelief. Finally, Elise von Herhart rings a bell and instructs the staff to bring the girl. A maid soon approaches Bill with the request. Bill looks surprised and asks why Layla has been summoned. The maid explains that a young lady from the Brandt family specifically asked to play with her. Bill wonders why a noble child would want to spend time with an orphan. But Layla quickly reassures him. She promises she will return soon and asks him not to worry. When Layla arrives, she immediately notices how beautiful Elise von Herhart is. The woman smiles warmly and calls Layla an adorable child. Then she turns to Claudine and asks a simple question. Does she like the girl? Claudine answers cheerfully. Yes, she does. Layla feels confused by all the attention and questions directed at her. In this world of elegant clothes and strict manners, it seems that no one really considers how she feels. Soon, Elise von Herhart calls for the maids and gives them clear instructions. They lead Layla to a luxurious room she has never seen before. There, she is bathed in a grand bathroom, dressed in soft white clothing, and her hair is carefully combed. The attention feels slightly uncomfortable, but Layla quietly endures it. She knows this is Madame Herhart's order, and she worries that any mistake could bring trouble to Uncle Bill. One of the maids gently reminds her that Claudine von Brandt is the daughter of Count Brandt, and that she should behave carefully around her. Layla nods and follows the maid. She steps cautiously into the room where Claudine is waiting. Claudine greets her warmly and immediately asks for her name. Layla introduces herself and mentions her age as well. Claudine looks surprised. She admits she thought Layla was younger because she is so small. Layla thinks quietly to herself that this is the second time someone has said that today. Still, she decides to remain patient, for Uncle Bill's sake. Claudine then asks if Layla can play the piano. Layla answers honestly that she cannot. In fact, this is the first time she has ever seen a piano. Claudine continues asking questions. Does she know how to arrange flowers, play dice, card games, chess? Each time, Layla shakes her head. She has never tried any of those things. Claudine pauses, thinking about it, before finally declaring that Layla is just a child who knows nothing at all. She sighs in disappointment. She had been hoping Layla would be entertaining, but now she thinks the girl is no more interesting than a puppy. After Claudine leaves, Layla sits alone. Part of her wants to return home to Uncle Bill immediately, but she hesitates, wondering if Claudine might come back. A maid soon appears and hands her a coin. Layla stares at it in confusion, unsure what to do. The maid gently places the coin into her hand and explains that when a noble gives a gift, it is polite to accept it. Layla decides not to think too much about Claudine's harsh words. Just then, she hears her name being called. Turning around, she sees Claudine again, this time accompanied by 2 boys. Layla feels a quiet sense of relief when she realizes that the Duke is not among them. Claudine quickly says goodbye before leaving again in a hurry. Not long after, Layla accidentally stumbles and falls. When she lifts her head, she sees someone standing in front of her. It is Duke Matthias von Herhart. His gaze is sharp and cold, looking down at her as if she were something insignificant. For a brief moment, the corner of his lips curls slightly, but then something changes in his expression. The words Claudine had spoken earlier echo in his mind. She's no better than a puppy. Layla quickly bows and runs away, holding back tears. She runs through the forest, guided by the warm lights of the mansion in the distance. When the house finally comes into view, a new feeling settles inside her. The tightness in her chest, the heaviness in her throat. This feeling is sadness. The next morning, Bill asks if she plans to go back to the forest. Layla quietly shakes her head and says she would rather stay home. Bill nods without asking further questions. 2 days have passed since her visit to the main mansion, and Layla has become unusually quiet. She spends most of her time in her room. The house feels strangely silent. Bill sits at the table, noticing how empty everything feels. Before they begin their meal, Layla carefully places the coin she received in front of him. Bill picks it up and suddenly understands why she has seemed so down since returning home. He asks her why she is giving it to him. Layla explains that the coin is too valuable for her, but even if it is small, she wants to repay him for everything he has done. Bill watches her quietly. He remembers the evening she ran home from the mansion. At the time, he suspected something had happened that might have hurt her, but he pretended not to notice because he did not want to make her cry. Now, he gently tells her to keep the coin. She earned it. He explains that she had simply done a job, helping an aristocrat who was terribly bored. Layla looks up in surprise. Bill smiles and congratulates Layla. He tells her that sometimes a person steps into the adult world quietly, without even realizing it. Layla hesitates and asks if she isn't still too young for that. Bill gently explains that being able to earn money on her own is already a step toward adulthood. Layla thinks it is only a single gold coin, but Bill reminds her that many people struggle to earn even a small fraction of that. Then he pushes a plate of food toward her and encourages her to eat more. He jokes that he likes children who eat heartily, like a cow. Layla laughs and asks if eating well will help her grow taller. Bill nods and asks if anyone has been teasing her about her height. Layla admits that people often say she looks too small. He pours her a glass of apple juice and tells her she should buy something she likes, perhaps a new notebook and some colored pencils. Layla then asks if there is anything he would like. Bill jokingly says something expensive. Without hesitation, Layla promises that she will earn more money and buy it for him one day. Bill smiles, saying he will look forward to that. Watching her, he quietly thinks to himself that she is a bright and lovely child. Though she is still small and delicate now, she will likely grow into a very beautiful young woman. But that thought also brings him a quiet worry. In difficult circumstances, beauty can sometimes become a dangerous burden. Without proper guidance, a young girl like her could easily fall into trouble. Bill wants to send her somewhere safe, somewhere he can trust. But no such place seems to exist. As the days pass, he continues to wonder if there is anywhere she could grow up without being hurt again. Time moves forward. The new clothes she once wore awkwardly begin to fit her naturally. The small room that had once been temporary slowly transforms into a comfortable space suited for a young lady. Years pass. Layla is now 18. She has grown into a fresh and graceful young woman, much like a rose Bill has carefully tended over the years. Yet despite everything, she still lives at Arvis estate, together with Bill, the man who became her guardian. One afternoon, Layla returns home carrying a small basket filled with ripe raspberries. She excitedly shows them to Uncle Bill, happily explaining that the forest produced a wonderful harvest this year. She plans to gather more the next day and turn them into raspberry jam. Bill raises an eyebrow playfully and asks if she intends to start a jam business. Layla shrugs with a small smile, saying that it might not be such a bad idea. She then hands him a few peaches she picked as well. Bill laughs softly and comments that summer must have arrived again if the peaches are growing so well. Layla feels a quiet warmth in her chest. She is happy that Bill notices the little things she does. That night, she sits in her room reading beneath the soft glow of a lamp. Her exams are approaching, and she wants to prepare well. However, she notices that her eyes are becoming tired much faster than before. She begins thinking about saving enough money to buy herself a pair of glasses. Her thoughts soon drift back to the forest and the raspberries she saw earlier. If she gathers enough and turns them into jam, perhaps she could sell them and earn some extra money. Just then, Bill walks into the room and finds her still studying. He gently asks why she has not gone to bed yet. Layla explains that she wants to study a little longer. Bill nods with a soft smile. He praises her diligence but reminds her not to push herself too hard. Layla accepts his advice quietly, feeling both comforted and motivated. Some time ago, Bill had made an important decision. Despite the protests of many people around him, he insisted that Layla should attend school. Some argued that educating an orphan girl was unnecessary. They said that even if she continued living at the estate, she could simply marry into another family one day or work as a maid for the Duchess. But Bill ignored their objections. He believed firmly that Layla deserved the chance to learn and grow. And so, every day, Layla follows behind him on the road to school. With each step, she begins to discover more about the unfamiliar world that exists beyond the walls of the mansion. Each day at school brings Layla new knowledge and curiosity. She becomes excited about everything she learns and eagerly shares those discoveries with Bill whenever she returns home. Bill always listens warmly. Every time she speaks, he smiles and tells her that she will grow up to become an outstanding adult. Those words settle deeply in Layla's heart, like a quiet blessing she carries with her. Determined to live up to them, she resolves to do well in her exams. To her, succeeding in school feels like the first step toward repaying Bill for everything he has done for her. When summer vacation finally arrives, Layla feels both excited and hopeful. She knows that the Duke of Arvis will soon return. After graduating from college, Matthias von Herhart has been commissioned as an army officer, continuing the long military tradition of his family through the Royal Military Academy. He has not visited Arvis for 2 years, having spent that time serving on distant front lines. Thinking about his return, Layla suddenly remembers the distant sound of gunfire that once echoed through the forest. During the vacation, one of her friends talks excitedly about traveling with her family and asks Layla what plans she has for the summer. Layla admits she has not decided yet. Then her friend suddenly points toward someone nearby. Layla turns and sees a familiar figure, Kyle Ettman. He waves warmly at her. Layla waves back, quickly saying goodbye to her friends before running toward him. With a playful smile, she asks why he came all the way here. She jokes that it would have been more comfortable for him to simply visit her home later. Kyle laughs and explains that he was passing by anyway. In fact, he admits that he even skipped tennis club practice just so he could walk home from school with her. Behind him, a few of his teammates complain quietly, muttering that he has once again gone to see that girl. As Kyle and Layla walk together, he admits that he ran as fast as he could to reach her. He comments on how hot the day has become. Then he asks if she would like to get some ice cream. Layla happily agrees. Afterwards, she suggests stopping by the bookstore because there is a book she has been wanting to read. Kyle immediately agrees. Meanwhile, his teammates shake their heads in the distance, complaining that someone should remind him to return to club practice the next day, or he might end up removed from the team entirely. Inside the bookstore, Layla excitedly shows Kyle the book she wants. She begins talking about migratory birds returning during this season. She explains that during the vacation, she wants to observe different birds and record everything she sees in her notebook. Kyle listens quietly. As she speaks, his gaze lingers on her. For a moment, he wonders if today might finally be the day he confesses that he likes her. Layla notices him staring. She asks gently if he wants to say something. Kyle quickly shakes his head and denies it, awkwardly changing the topic. Soon, Layla says that they should probably head home. Kyle hesitates. Deep down, he feels that it may not be the right moment to confess his feelings. He does not know how she truly feels about him, and rushing things might make her uncomfortable. The last thing he wants is to damage the friendship they have built over the years. Still, it becomes harder and harder to stay patient. Every day, Layla seems to grow more beautiful. Kyle simply wants to see her smile for a long time. Then another thought crosses his mind. Perhaps there is no need to start with the word lover. They have known each other for so long already. Maybe it would be better if they simply became a couple right away, living comfortably together like a husband and wife who understand each other better than anyone else. He even imagines marrying her after graduating from college. In his mind, he pictures how she might look wearing a wedding dress. And he becomes certain of one thing. No bride in the world would ever be more beautiful than her. Kyle Ettman's wife, Layla Ettman. The thought makes him grin. Suddenly, he bursts into laughter. Layla looks at him in confusion and asks why he is laughing. Teasing him, she wonders if it is because she failed her geometry test. Kyle pretends to be shocked. Layla quickly adds that he would not understand anyway, since he always gets perfect scores in geometry. Kyle laughs and runs after Layla, telling her they should walk together. As they head down the road, he mentions that the Duke has returned and wonders how Layla can remain so uninterested. According to him, the entire mansion has been in chaos because of the Duke's arrival. Layla shivers slightly at the thought. Although Claudine von Brandt was the one who humiliated her before, the Duke left behind a different kind of mark on her heart. It is a deeper scar than the contempt she experienced while moving between relatives' homes as a child. Whenever she sees Matthias von Herhart, that memory resurfaces, so she tries her best to avoid him. Noticing her mood, Kyle tries to lighten the conversation. He jokes that perhaps he should become an officer like the Duke and earn medals of his own. Layla laughs and teases him, reminding him that he cannot even kill a chicken. Kyle immediately frowns and asks why she keeps bringing that up. The memory still embarrasses him. He recalls a day the previous year when Bill had asked why he was always visiting their house instead of going home. Bill pointed out that Kyle hardly even ate at his own house anymore and warned him not to come over so often. Kyle had thought to himself that studying together was the only excuse he had to spend time with Layla, so he offered to pay for meals whenever he visited. Bill reluctantly agreed, but then Bill gave him a simple task: catch a chicken for dinner. Kyle failed miserably. When he could not even catch the bird, Bill bluntly called him a good-for-nothing of the Ettman family. The words hurt so much that Kyle burst into tears while Layla tried to comfort him. Since that day, Kyle has noticed that Bill rarely calls him by his name anymore. Instead, he jokingly calls him good-for-nothing. Now, Layla repeats the phrase playfully, admitting that she actually likes him because he is that kind of person. Kyle raises an eyebrow and asks if she is teasing him again, but Layla quickly explains what she means. She says she wants his hands to save people, not to shoot them. Kyle pauses and considers that. Then he asks if he should become a military doctor instead, wondering if doctors also receive medals. Layla nods eagerly, saying it would be an amazing job since it saves lives. Surely someone who does that would deserve a medal. Just then, they notice a car approaching along the road and step aside to let it pass. Kyle wonders aloud if the Duke might be inside. Layla shakes her head and says it is probably Lady Herhart because the Duke dislikes automobiles. Kyle mutters that he cannot understand why cars combine such beautiful design with geometric precision. Layla smiles and points out that he has started talking about geometry again. Kyle reaches into his bag to show her some geometry notes he prepared, but then realizes he left them at home. Layla decides it is time to head back. Before leaving, she tells him to come over later for dinner and bring the notes with him. Kyle asks if she is waiting for him or for the notes. Layla laughs and says it is the notes. Kyle sighs dramatically but promises to return soon after getting them. Layla tells him to take his time, and the two go their separate ways. Not long after, the Duke's car slows to a stop along the road. Matthias von Herhart steps out, deciding to walk the rest of the way through the surrounding woods. Sunlight glints off the polished surface of the vehicle as the men accompanying him remain nearby. One of them quietly remarks that the Duke arrived a full week earlier than expected. Because of that, the mansion staff had barely enough time to prepare. And now the Duke suddenly wants to walk alone. Matthias simply shakes his head and says he will see them later at the mansion. The men drive away, leaving him alone. Removing his cap, Matthias walks slowly through the trees. As he moves through the forest, his thoughts drift back to something his mother said recently. She reminded him that he should become engaged this summer. Thinking about it now, Matthias realizes she is probably right. For someone in his position, marriage is not a matter of romance. It is simply duty, the proper step in continuing the family line and producing an heir. His grandmother has long believed that Claudine von Brandt would be the ideal match to become the next Duchess. Matthias does not disagree. Claudine possesses a distinguished lineage and excellent qualifications. In fact, a meeting between them has already been planned for later this summer. Reflecting on it, Matthias cannot help but think that a life like his has everything carefully arranged from the very beginning. Every detail planned, every expectation clearly defined. There is little space for desire or uncertainty. Sometimes he even admits to himself that it feels slightly boring. Everything has already been decided for him. He has lived as the perfect child, the perfect student, and the perfect officer. Now the next step is simple. He will marry the perfect woman and become the perfect father, continuing the Herhart family lineage, just as his father and grandfather did before him. As these thoughts cross his mind, a sudden movement catches his attention. A girl on a bicycle rides past him along the forest path. She glances back, recognizes him, and immediately loses her balance, tumbling off the bicycle. Matthias pauses. Looking more closely, he wonders if she is the same girl the gardener once took in, the child who used to live near the estate. The girl quickly scrambles to her feet, apologizing repeatedly as she gathers the books that scattered across the ground. Matthias calls her name. Startled, she apologizes again. When she bends down to pick up a pen, he stops her gently and reminds her that he called her. She raises her head and answers politely that she is listening. But Matthias says nothing more. Instead, he simply turns and walks away. Layla remains standing there, watching him disappear through the trees, confused by the brief encounter. She wonders why he called her only to leave without another word. For a moment, she hesitates, unsure whether she should continue along the same path or avoid meeting him again. Meanwhile, Matthias continues walking through the forest. Quietly, he reflects on how much Layla has grown. She is no longer the small child he remembers. Now she is a young woman. As summer reaches its peak, the gardens of Arvis estate bloom beautifully. The roses that symbolize the pride of the Herhart family are in full blossom. The Duke has returned. Inside the estate, the servants move busily from place to place. Preparations are underway for the many gatherings and celebrations that accompany the Duke's return. Guests are arriving, and every detail must be carefully arranged. Among the noble families of Berg, the Brandt family holds the second highest prestige after the Herharts. Count Brandt is one of the most important guests expected at Arvis. Naturally, special attention is given to his daughter, Claudine von Brandt. Officially, the Brandts have come to spend the summer visiting relatives. However, everyone understands the real reason for the visit. Claudine's engagement to the Duke is expected to be announced. Negotiations between the two families are already well advanced, and the arrangement has been handled with friendly agreement on both sides. No one is truly trying to hide the purpose of the visit. At that moment, Claudine admires the large greenhouse on the estate grounds. She comments on how beautiful it is and compliments Lady Elise von Herhart for maintaining it so carefully. Elise smiles and explains that she has cared for the greenhouse for many years. She adds that she looks forward to the day she can pass it on to the next lady of the house, someone who will truly appreciate its beauty. Then she suggests that Matthias show Claudine the wonders of Arvis while the adults continue their discussions. Matthias rises from his seat and politely offers Claudine his hand. As he does, a brief memory flashes through his mind. Layla kneeling on the forest path, picking up her pen. But the thought disappears quickly. Standing before him now is Claudine von Brandt. She has grown into the image of a perfect noble lady, elegant, composed, and refined. Matthias escorts her through the estate with formal politeness, almost as if they are meeting for the first time. Back at the table, both families observe their interaction. Although Matthias and Claudine have never been particularly close, they have known each other long enough to understand one another. Their marriage is not based on romance. It is a political union between two noble families. As they walk through the greenhouse, Claudine becomes fascinated by the birds kept inside. She notices how calm and obedient they seem around people and wonders what the secret might be. A caretaker explains that their wings have been clipped. Claudine looks surprised and asks whether the birds feel pain when this is done. The man reassures her that only the tips of the feathers are trimmed. If she wishes, he can even show her. She looks toward Matthias for permission. He nods. The caretaker brings a small bird forward. Matthias asks what kind of bird it is. The man replies that it is a songbird known for its beautiful voice. He explains that trimming the wings prevents it from flying too far away. Claudine asks again if the wings are truly cut. The caretaker calmly explains that it is done carefully and actually protects the birds from danger. The Duke picks up the bird, but the caretaker gently takes it from him, explaining that birds need time to adjust after their wings have been clipped. He then asks Claudine if she would like to try taming it. Claudine politely declines. Instead, she turns to the Duke and suggests they return to the table. The Duke takes her hand and leads her back, instructing the man to bring the bird to his room. Later that day, Layla arrives at the mansion with a small bouquet of flowers. A maid thanks her, and Layla casually remarks that it seems someone important will soon arrive at the estate. The maid smiles and leans closer, telling her that the entire Brandt family will be visiting. Layla's eyes widen when she hears that Claudine will be among them. When the maid adds that the visit is connected to Claudine's engagement, Layla feels a mixture of curiosity and unease. Meanwhile, in the forest, Layla gathers ripe raspberries. She glances toward the distant estate. She had hoped the woods would remain quiet even after the Duke's return, but something in the air makes her feel that something important is about to happen. Thinking it may be better to avoid trouble, she decides to stop picking raspberries for the day. She wants to finish before the Duke begins spending more time in the forest, and before Claudine starts calling for her at the estate. At that moment, the Duke's carriage waits on standby. He had been scheduled to meet the estate director at noon. Instead, he chooses to walk along the Schulta River and through Arvis Forest. He enjoys the scenery so much that he once converted the nearby boathouse into a small private cabin. His mother and grandmother rarely visit the riverside, leaving the place entirely to him. There he often spends hours watching the river and the trees, reading books, resting when he grows bored, and most of all, swimming, his favorite activity. As he relaxes by the water, his thoughts drift toward the marriage negotiations between the Herhart and Brandt families. Everything has proceeded exactly as planned. The engagement is expected to last 1 year, and by the end of summer it will be publicly announced, securing his position as Duke of Herhart. He also reflects that there may soon be little reason to continue his military duties. After serving a year or two as an imperial guard, he plans to leave the army and devote himself fully to the affairs of his family. Meanwhile, high in a tree nearby, Layla sits comfortably with a peach in one hand and a book in the other. A loose page from her book suddenly slips free and drifts to the ground. As she looks down, she notices someone swimming in the river. It is the Duke. She blinks several times, hardly believing what she is seeing. Quietly, she prays that he will not notice her. But before she can react, he begins moving toward the shore. Her heart starts pounding. Layla quickly jumps down from the tree and runs through the underbrush. As she rushes through the forest, she suddenly collides with Kyle, who had been searching for her. Startled, he asks if something happened in the woods. Perhaps if she encountered a wild animal. Layla struggles to catch her breath, thinking that meeting a wild animal would have been far less frightening. Kyle tells her to calm down and asks about the raspberries she had gone to pick. Suddenly remembering them, Layla gasps. But in her panic, she blurts out that she cannot go back for them and runs off again. Meanwhile, the Duke, now dressed, walks along the riverbank and eventually reaches the patch where the raspberries had been growing. He frowns slightly, wondering if someone is trying to wipe out the entire raspberry crop in Arvis. His thoughts drift back to the first day he saw Layla sitting in a tree. Her name briefly crosses his mind. He shakes his head, still unable to believe that she climbs trees simply for fun. Not long after, Layla finally manages to buy her long-awaited eyeglasses, using the money she earned from selling raspberries. As she walks home wearing them for the first time, she marvels at how clear everything looks. The world appears sharper and brighter than before. Yet even on such a beautiful day, a shadow lingers in her thoughts. She wonders why certain painful memories keep returning when everything around her seems so peaceful. Layla's thoughts drift back to the moment she saw the Duke swimming in the river. Even though the riverside is her favorite place, she decides it would be wiser to avoid it until the Duke leaves. She has no desire to risk another awkward encounter. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls her name. Layla turns and sees the Duke walking beside Claudine. She greets them politely with a quiet hello. Claudine studies her for a moment, noticing how much Layla has grown into a young lady. Curious, she begins asking about her. Claudine explains that they are on their way to have tea at a hotel and invites Layla to join them. She glances toward the Duke to see if he objects, but he says nothing. Encouraged by his silence, Claudine gently insists that Layla come along. Layla hesitates. She remembers that she is supposed to meet Kyle downtown. but after checking the time, she realizes she still has a little time to spare. Reluctantly, she agrees to join them. At the hotel, Layla immediately feels a strange tension. Although Claudine invited her, the situation places her in an uncomfortable position. She is physically present, yet socially expected to behave as if she is invisible. It is a feeling she has known since she was 12. Still, with her new glasses, she can now see the Duke clearly. His gaze makes her skin prickle with discomfort. She cannot help wondering whether he feels embarrassed about what happened the other day. During the tea, both Claudine and the Duke casually mention the upcoming party at the estate and suggest that Layla attend as well. Layla remains quiet, unsure how to respond. After a moment, she politely asks for permission to leave, explaining that she must meet her friend Kyle. Claudine smiles and nods, saying it was nice to see her again. Layla bows slightly, says goodbye, and quickly leaves. As she walks away, the Duke watches her silently, his expression unreadable. When Layla finally meets Kyle, he immediately notices the excitement on her face and begins teasing her. "You achieved your goal," he says with a grin. Layla frowns and tells him not to tease her. Then she notices that he is still smiling. She asks why he has been grinning like that for so long. Kyle leans closer and jokingly says that when she pushes up her glasses, her eyes look like a little mouse. Layla scolds him lightly, but he only laughs and suggests they find something to eat since he is hungry. Meanwhile, the Duke and Claudine are returning to the estate. Their carriage slows when the road ahead becomes briefly blocked. Through the window, the Duke suddenly notices Layla walking beside Kyle. His eyes narrow slightly. He realizes that Kyle Ettman, the doctor's son, is the person Layla was planning to meet earlier. The thought lingers in his mind as the carriage continues down the road. The following morning, Claudine's mother watches Layla and Bill through a window at the estate. She quietly wonders whether Layla is still living there under Bill's care. Claudine confirms it with a small smile and remarks that Layla seems to grow more beautiful every day. Her mother frowns slightly and wonders whether that is truly a good thing. Deep down, she already knows the answer. Layla had always been pretty, but now she has grown even more striking than expected. She has a small, delicate frame, gentle features, bright green eyes, and smooth, pale skin. That is why Claudine's mother suggested inviting Layla to tea earlier. She wanted to see how the Duke would react to a young woman who had grown up quietly on his own estate. But from what she observed, the Duke behaved exactly as expected. He showed only moderate interest, carefully controlled indifference, and flawless aristocratic composure. Claudine's mother remains uneasy, but she chooses not to dwell on the matter. She remarks that Layla is still young and likely knows little about men. She begins to say that if it were her... But Claudine interrupts sharply. She asks whether her mother truly expects her to worry about other men when she is about to marry Duke Matthias von Herhart, one of the most eligible men in the entire empire. She adds calmly that powerful men often have a mistress or two. Claudine allows herself a quiet thought. Perhaps something unexpected might happen after all. The Duke could be drawn in by the beauty of a young woman, just as her father, and many other men once had been. But she quickly dismisses the idea. A man who understands how to treat women with respect is usually harmless. It is reckless, ignorant men who cause trouble. The Duke, she believes, is not that kind of man. As the head of a noble family, he would never abandon his duties for a moment of desire. Still, another thought crosses her mind. If something inappropriate were to happen, she would prefer it to be with someone like Layla, a gentle, obedient girl who could easily be controlled. A girl who would never threaten her position. Her mother blinks in surprise. Memories of her own past return to her, of weakness, of repeated miscarriages, and of the long struggle that finally resulted in Claudine's birth. Quietly, she admits that nothing good can come from having a girl like Layla living so close to the Duke. She wonders why she had never noticed the girl before, even though she visits the estate every year. Deciding that the matter cannot be ignored, she resolves to speak with the Herhart family about it. Meanwhile, Claudine's thoughts turn inward. She worries that her father's affection may cool as he grows more frustrated about not having a male heir. She wonders when a young, beautiful woman might appear, one who could give birth to a son and take her father's attention away. For a moment, she almost pities her mother, who has lived with that fear for years. But the feeling quickly fades. Claudine refuses to live the same way. She asks herself what difference it would make if the Duke were interested in someone like Layla. In the end, she concludes it would only be temporary desire, nothing more. Her mother suddenly calls her name sharply, insisting that Claudine does not yet understand what love truly is. but Claudine remembers the promise she made to herself long ago. She will never live like her mother. She will never surrender to a love that abandons her once passion fades. Instead, she will pursue a perfect marriage, one that protects her dignity above all else. Elsewhere on the estate, the Duke sits quietly by a window, holding a bright yellow bird. Through the glass, he notices Layla moving below in the distance. At the same time, Kyle arrives at Layla's house. Seeing that no one is home, he assumes she must be helping Bill somewhere nearby. Deciding to wait, he remains there, certain she will return soon. While he waits, his thoughts drift toward her. Even with glasses, the future Mrs. Ettman, he thinks, looks breathtaking. Memories surface in his mind. The time she promised to buy him dessert because he bought her a sandwich. The moment he reminded her to hold on tighter while riding his bicycle. Sometimes he wants to rush forward and confess everything to her. But he reminds himself of the promise he made, to wait for the right moment. Yet whenever he sees her, that resolve weakens. His heart begins to race. Heat spreads through his body. Even his dreams sometimes leave him restless and uneasy. More than anything, he fears that one day someone might suddenly take Layla away from him. The thought pushes him dangerously close to confessing his feelings. Just then, he hears his name. Kyle turns and sees Layla approaching, wearing a wide-brimmed hat. The sight makes him burst into laughter. He teases her immediately, saying the hat looks tacky and asking where she found it. Convinced she would never buy something like that herself. Layla and Bill both look surprised, but Layla quickly explains that Bill bought it as a gift for her. Kyle studies the hat again. After a moment, he changes his opinion, admitting that it actually looks quite pretty, and even tasteful. They head inside together. Soon, food is placed on the table. Layla gestures toward the dishes and invites Kyle to eat. Kyle hesitates for a moment, still surprised that they prepared such a meal just for him. But after a polite smile, he begins eating, quietly grateful for their kindness. Later, he joins Layla on the balcony. The warm afternoon breeze moves gently around them. Kyle asks softly if she is still upset with him. Stepping closer, he apologizes sincerely. Then he asks about the hat. "Why the hat?" he asks. Layla explains simply that she asked for it herself. Kyle looks at her with mild surprise. She has never asked him for anything before. Layla continues explaining that her uncle had been upset when she bought her expensive glasses without telling him first. Bill had gently scolded her, asking if she did not trust him enough to consult him before making such a purchase. He had never been angry with her before, and despite her explanations, the disappointment in his eyes made her heart ache. So Layla asked him for a small favor instead. A simple, pretty hat. Bill bought it for her himself. Some people teased her for wearing something they thought looked tacky, but to Layla, the hat is special. To her, flowers are the most beautiful things in the world, and a hat covered in flowers must be the most beautiful hat of all. When she tells Kyle this, he suddenly feels guilty. He mutters that he feels like trash for making fun of it earlier. Layla smiles warmly, knowing that he understands now. Kyle promises that he will never tease her about the hat again. Just then, Bill walks into the room and notices Kyle still there. "You haven't gone home yet?" he asks with a playful frown. Kyle laughs and shrugs lightly. Bill then tells Layla that he will be heading into town for a while. As Kyle watches them, he feels a small, inexplicable pang of jealousy. Deep down, he knows that anyone who loves Layla must accept second place. For her, the most important person will always be Uncle Bill. After Bill leaves, the two sit nearby reading. Kyle worries that this might be the only chance they have to talk, but Layla becomes completely absorbed in the story she is reading. From the corner of his eye, he watches her quietly, admiring how beautiful she looks when she reads with full concentration. Finally, he calls her name. Layla lifts her head, but something outside the house catches her attention. Kyle follows her gaze. The Duke is approaching. Kyle immediately steps aside, and Layla does the same, brushing crumbs from her mouth. Kyle greets the Duke politely. Layla speaks softly, explaining that her uncle has gone into town for a while. She asks if the Duke needs assistance. The Duke replies that she can help bring him some roses. Layla looks slightly surprised and asks if he means picking roses from the garden. He tells her to choose them carefully and bring them to a separate building. Then he leaves. Seeing her about to go, Kyle suggests that they run the errand together. Layla waves him off, saying it is not a big task. Kyle hesitates and asks if he should wait for her there, but Layla insists that he go home instead. She teases him, asking if his mother will be angry if she finds him lingering there again. As Layla walks toward the garden, she wonders why the Duke personally came to ask her for help. She decides that he must have simply been passing by. Behind her, Kyle lingers for a moment and calls out softly. Layla turns and waves back with a smile. When she delivers the roses, the Duke examines them briefly and tells her to bring more, this time in brighter colors. Layla freezes for a moment, surprised by his unusually specific request. Still, she returns to the garden and gathers another batch. The Duke continues asking for more flowers, sending her back and forth several times. Layla soon realizes that he is staying in the annex by the river, a private place where guests rarely enter. Even some servants are restricted from going there. She wonders if the flowers are meant for Claudine, who will soon be engaged to him. Perhaps that is why he asked for brightly colored roses, flowers that would suit Claudine's taste. But as the constant trips continue under the hot summer sun, Layla begins to question the Duke's reputation. How can someone who torments another person in the heat of summer be considered a good man? She scolds herself for thinking about him at all. In truth, she admits that she absolutely hates him. On her way back with another batch of roses, Layla passes a man and a lady who compliment her on her hard work. Curious, she asks where they are going. They reply that they are returning to the main mansion. After they say goodbye, Layla realizes something important. The Duke is now alone in the annex. A small wave of anxiety rises in her chest. She steps inside quietly, wondering if he might be asleep and debating whether she should wait or simply leave the flowers. Just then, the Duke opens his eyes. Layla announces that she has brought the flowers and hesitantly asks if he wants her to fetch more. The Duke tilts his head slightly and asks if she would do it if he requested it. Layla replies that she will if she made a mistake, but asks him to please tell her the color he wants this time. Realizing that her thoughts slipped out aloud, she feels momentarily embarrassed. The Duke simply says it is fine and gestures for her to sit. Layla believes she chose the colors correctly, and she is about to refuse the seat when he calls her name again. He reminds her that arranging the flowers in the vase is part of the task. Layla admits that she is not very skilled at flower arranging. The Duke asks if he should do it himself. Reluctantly, she sits down. While he writes at his desk, he occasionally glances toward her. Looking at Layla reminds him of the golden canary in his bedroom. At first, the bird flailed wildly whenever it was moved, but over time it became tame. Now it jumps onto his hand willingly, rubs against him, and sings softly whenever he approaches. Watching Layla quietly work, a thought crosses his mind. What about her? After a moment, Layla finishes arranging the flowers. She nervously asks if he likes them. The Duke examines the arrangement and calmly says that it is poor. Layla apologizes and offers to bring a maid who is more skilled next time. Instead, he tells her to sit and eat. Seeing her confused expression, he wonders if she dislikes the reward he prepared. His mind drifts briefly to the memory of her sitting with Kyle earlier, eating happily and smiling brightly. He had wanted to give her something similar as a reward. Layla thanks him politely and says she will leave if there is nothing else he needs. The Duke tilts his head again and asks whether those words are simply polite, or whether she would do more if he asked. Layla quietly sits down and begins to eat, but she already feels full after lunch and dessert. Her body is still warm and sweaty from running through the garden, and she doubts she can swallow much. Her thoughts begin to wander. Is this food meant as a gift, or as punishment for the poor flower arrangement she made? Suddenly, the Duke reaches forward and removes her hat. He reminds her calmly that ladies should not wear hats indoors. Layla's chest tightens. She remembers how easily he laughed at her the last time she was uncomfortable, and how casually he orders her around as if she were insignificant. She refuses to let the hat her uncle bought become something he mocks. Layla stands up, determined to leave, silently hoping he will give the hat back. The Duke tells her that she should finish eating first. Then he will return it. Layla refuses, feeling her patience slipping away. The Duke raises the hat slightly out of her reach. Layla stretches her hands upward, trying to grab it. Fear flickers through her mind as old memories return, of being pushed into a river by her cousin. She hesitates. Then the Duke casually throws the hat through the open window. It lands on the river below. Layla's heart jumps, but she quickly clutches her glasses, unwilling to risk losing them. Carefully, she steps down into the shallow water beneath the building. The water grows deeper as she moves forward, slowly rising until it reaches her height. Each step reminds her of past fears. Still, she reaches desperately toward the floating hat. Her arms strain, but the hat drifts just beyond her reach. From above, the Duke watches silently. In his mind, the situation seems simple. She only needed to follow a single instruction: eat. Then the hat would have been returned when she left. Instead, she made a fuss over something small, and now she is nearly drowning. Without hesitation, the Duke jumps into the water. Moments later, Layla sits upright, clutching the hat tightly against her chest as she struggles to catch her breath. The Duke watches her with quiet curiosity. He wonders why the hat means so much to her. Meanwhile, Layla cannot understand why he is laughing in a moment like this. He winks at her. For a brief second, she feels the urge to splash water at him, but he is already completely soaked. Layla flicks a little water from her skirt toward the Duke. He wipes his face calmly and remarks that she does not seem to be enjoying herself very much. Then he waits, clearly expecting her gratitude. The reaction startles her. Layla thinks quietly that none of this would have happened if he had not thrown her hat into the river. But in the Duke's mind, the answer is simple. None of this would have happened if she had simply eaten the sandwich he gave her. And considering how reckless it was for her to jump into the river without knowing how to swim, he finds the situation strange. Layla forces herself to endure the moment. She reminds herself that he is the Lord of Arvis, and she cannot risk causing trouble for Uncle Bill. She bows and thanks him. The Duke tells her to repeat it in a more ladylike manner. Layla apologizes for not being as refined as other young ladies, but the Duke tells her that she should try harder when she is in his presence. Layla stares at him for a moment. Then she adjusts her hat, bows again, and thanks him properly. After that, she announces that she will take her leave. In her mind, she decides that she will no longer argue with him, or allow him to treat her like a joke. Layla runs back toward home, fighting back tears. The feeling reminds her of another time she had run like this before, clutching a gold coin tightly in her hand. Her thoughts drift back to a day when she saw the Duke walking through the forest with Claudine. The scene had looked like something from a fairy tale. A beautiful lady walking beside a handsome gentleman. She had paused to watch them. A soft wind had carried Claudine's hat away, and the Duke had stepped off the path to retrieve it for her. Layla had thought the gesture looked elegant. Earlier, he had done something similar for her. But the feeling had been completely different. His face had been cold, as if the act meant nothing at all. Today, her heart aches more than usual, and exhaustion weighs heavily on her. Frustrated, she kicks a piece of dried fruit along the path and watches it roll away. Her vision suddenly blurs. That is when she realizes something. She forgot her glasses at the Duke's annex. Meanwhile, the Duke stands inside the room, holding the glasses in his hand. As evening approaches, the breeze drifting through the annex grows cooler. He studies the glasses thoughtfully. Layla's eyesight must be quite poor, he thinks. Perhaps that is why she often frowns slightly when she looks at things. A memory appears in his mind, of the small child who once stared at him with a furrowed brow, looking shabby and unimpressive. He stands up and begins tossing the glasses lightly from one hand to the other. Then another image comes to mind. Those bright green eyes that once shone so vividly with life. The fresh, sweet scent that seemed to surround her. Softly, almost without thinking, he whispers her name. Layla. The name feels warm, like midsummer sunlight. After a moment, he places the glasses inside a drawer. Slowly, the memory of those green eyes fades. That evening, the Duke leaves the estate in his car, heading away from Arvis. Meanwhile, Layla sits at home with Uncle Bill. Bill reassures her that she should not worry about the lost glasses. If they cannot be found, they will simply buy another pair. Layla quietly agrees. She decides not to tell him the real reason she lost them, that the Duke threw her hat into the river and caused all the trouble. There is no reason to make Bill worry. Instead, she convinces herself that the glasses must still be somewhere nearby. She resolves to retrieve them at dawn. Early the next morning, Layla returns to the Duke's annex and searches carefully, but the glasses are nowhere to be found. A crow caws from a nearby branch. Layla wonders briefly if the bird might have taken them. Meanwhile, Kyle is at home speaking to Phoebe, the rock pigeon that Layla trained with remarkable patience. For 2 years, the pigeon has faithfully delivered messages between them. Kyle takes a small letter from the bird and thanks it for its hard work before offering it a small reward. The message explains that Layla has lost her glasses and may not be able to meet him at the library today. She apologizes in the letter. Kyle frowns as he reads it, surprised that she could misplace something so important. Without wasting time, he grabs his bicycle and rushes outside. His mother watches him with concern and asks why he is leaving instead of studying. Kyle answers simply that he is going to the library. Kyle's mother presses further. She mentions Layla's name and wonders how long he plans to continue these childhood routines at such an important stage of his life. Kyle pushes the concern aside and rides quickly toward Layla's house. When he arrives, he immediately asks if she has found the glasses. Layla shakes her head. Kyle quickly suggests that they go into town together so he can buy her a new pair. For a moment, he realizes that his emotions are moving ahead of his thoughts. He almost forgets who Layla is. But she refuses. The determination in her eyes is unmistakable. No matter what anyone says, she will not give up searching. Later, Layla and Kyle enter the forest together to look for the missing glasses. Layla climbs a tree to check the branches. Suddenly, a flock of crows bursts into the air and scatters toward another grove. Layla pauses and asks Kyle if he should not return home. But he shakes his head firmly, determined to stay with her. At that moment, the Duke's car moves slowly along the forest path. Inside the vehicle, the men glance at the two young figures searching among the trees. One of them jokes that perhaps a crow has stolen Layla's glasses. The Duke listens quietly. He thinks to himself that many strange rumors must circulate among the servants. Yet he knows something else. There is no way Layla could have forgotten leaving the glasses on the deck that day. Now she is searching through nests and branches, as if she truly does not remember. He wonders if she simply does not want to remember. As the car passes, Layla catches sight of the Duke. His cold gaze unsettles her. Several days pass. Layla ventures even deeper into the forest, with Kyle happily accompanying her. Despite their persistent search, the Duke pretends not to notice them. Instead, he watches the birds in the trees, amused by the frantic way they build their nests. But as the days go on, his patience with the children's searching begins to fade. Finally, he decides to take some time from his busy schedule and walks toward the annex. A servant approaches and informs him that Marcus Lindman is expected to arrive earlier than planned, around noon. The servant explains that Madame has ordered special preparations for lunch and asks the Duke to attend if he has no other engagements. The Duke nods briefly. The servant leaves. Shortly afterward, Layla arrives at the annex and rings the bell. She apologizes politely for coming without notice. Almost immediately, she notices that the Duke's behavior is different from the day he teased her about the hat. Now he works calmly, speaking on the telephone and handling documents with quiet precision. He smiles occasionally, but never loses his steady composure. His posture remains straight and controlled, as if nothing could disturb him. Layla begins to understand why so many people admire him and call him perfect. Yet the idea that someone like him could be responsible for hiding her glasses suddenly feels almost foolish. She decides that asking him about it is pointless. Instead, she plans to continue searching the forest nests she has not yet checked. Just as she turns to leave, the Duke calls her to stop. He tells her to ask what she came to ask. Layla hesitates before mentioning the glasses she left on the deck the day she jumped into the water. She asks if he might have seen them. The Duke answers vaguely. His response leaves the matter uncertain. Perhaps he saw them. Perhaps he did not. Layla wonders briefly if he could have hidden them, but she dismisses the thought. Doing something like that would be far too cruel, even for him. Later that night, inside the master suite, a guest remarks that he did not expect Lady Claudine to arrange such a private gathering in such a secluded place. He jokes that the Duke must be unusually generous when it comes to his fiancée. Claudine notices his tone and calmly asks him not to use nicknames. Some of the others quietly agree with his comment. The man quickly apologizes, explaining that everyone simply became excited and drank too much. He says it is obvious that Claudine will soon become the Duke's wife. As he speaks, his attention drifts to the corner of the room. There, he notices a bird cage. He looks surprised to see it. The bird suddenly flies from the cage toward the Duke, and the Duke seems completely focused on caring for it. One of the men looks at the bird and wonders aloud why the Duke bothers raising birds only to hunt them later. He feels a strange sympathy for the creature. After all, the bird cannot understand the true nature of its master. For a moment, he cannot decide whether to laugh at the bird's foolish trust or pity it. He glances toward Claudine and asks what she thinks. Claudine calmly replies that either reaction would be appropriate. She recognizes the bird and asks whether the Duke has given it a name. If not, she suggests one. The Duke dismisses the idea. To him, a bird is simply a bird, nothing more. The man feels even more sorry for the creature. It has entrusted itself to a hunter, who will not even give it a name. Earlier that day, while Layla was asking the Duke about her missing glasses, a servant entered the room carrying an urgent telegram. The Duke gestured slightly. It was a clear signal for her to leave. Layla understood immediately. She would not be getting any answers today. Still, deep down, she knew the truth. It was not the crows who had taken her glasses. It was the Duke. But why? She wonders if perhaps he has some strange fascination with shiny things, like the crows themselves. A troubling thought crosses her mind. Will she have to keep visiting him, again and again, until he finally returns them? And somehow she doubts he will give them back easily. That same evening, a grand dinner party takes place at the Duke's estate. Guests fill the mansion. Music, laughter, and conversation continue late into the night. Meanwhile, the smaller annex building behind the estate remains almost completely deserted. Layla makes a quiet decision. Under the soft glow of moonlight, she will sneak in and retrieve her glasses. At the party, the Duke keeps the bird close beside him, but his thoughts drift elsewhere. They drift to Layla. Eventually, he excuses himself and heads toward the annex. He is confident she understood the meaning behind his earlier words. He knows her well enough now. A girl who spent days searching through crow nests for her glasses would never give up so easily. And persistence is exactly what will lead her into the trap he has carefully prepared. Inside the annex, he lies down quietly. Layla's glasses rest in his hand. He waits. Calm, patient. Then a faint sound breaks the silence. Layla has arrived. Instead of using the door he deliberately left slightly open, she climbs in through the window. The Duke notes this silently. Not unexpected. Yet, somehow, she still manages to surprise him. In the dim moonlight, Layla hesitates. Without her glasses, the room is blurry. She begins searching carefully, drawer after drawer. The Duke watches quietly, completely unbothered by her intrusion. After searching through several drawers, Layla grows frustrated. Where could the glasses possibly be? The Duke observes her thoughtfully. She is no longer a child. He has already accepted that. That realization is exactly why he set this small, pitiful trap and waited for her to fall into it. Finally, he speaks. His voice cuts through the darkness. He asks whether she is looking for the glasses he is holding. Layla freezes. Shock floods her face. Only now does she realize he has been there the entire time. She quickly apologizes, explaining that she did not know he was inside. The Duke asks calmly whether his absence would have made it acceptable for her to enter. Does she consider herself a thief? As she struggles to explain herself, her eyes fall on the object in his hand. Her glasses. Relief and embarrassment crash over her at the same time. She explains that she only wanted to take back what belonged to her. But the Duke watches her closely. He remarks that her attempt at bravery is almost futile. Yet she is still trembling. Pathetically. He turns and begins walking toward the door. Panic grips her. What if he throws the glasses into the river? Just like he did with her hat? She rushes after him, pleading desperately. She explains that she saved for a long time to buy them. The bright moonlight spills across the room. It reveals her thin nightwear. Realizing this, Layla quickly wraps her arms around herself and bends slightly, trying to hide her body. The Duke watches her with faint curiosity. In his mind, he wonders if she is being overly dramatic. After all, she has already seen every corner of his body before. Layla reminds herself silently. That moment had not been desire. It had been necessity. He asks quietly whether she actually wants him to look at her. Layla forces herself to remain calm, because one thought echoes in her mind. At any moment, the Duke could accuse her of theft. She continues to plead for forgiveness, and he notices how suddenly ladylike her behavior has become. She insists that regardless of her behavior, he remains a gentleman. He remarks that perhaps he is not, but she disagrees at once, insisting that he is the greatest gentleman in Kelsar. He finds the praise difficult to believe, yet she explains that everyone around him thinks the same, which leaves her almost certain of her judgment. She keeps pleading for her glasses, emphasizing how hard it had been for her to obtain them and how precious they are to her. At last, Matthias places the glasses back on Layla's face. His fingers brush her lightly as he studies her and steps closer. In that moment, he recognizes the feeling rising within himself. A craving for Layla, the girl who has grown into such a beautiful young woman. Yet he also recognizes the danger in that feeling. The intensity of it is brief, and he questions whether it is worth staining his life just to satisfy it. In the end, he decides that it is not. Indulging such a craving would serve no purpose. With that, he allows her to leave. Layla bows and walks away through the forest, her heart racing. When she reaches the water, she splashes her face with it, trying to steady herself. Her memory feels hazy, but certain details remain painfully vivid. The deep, calm blue eyes that seemed ready to swallow her whole. The heat of his hands, the touch of his fingers, the tremble of her breath under his presence, and the overwhelming embarrassment that followed. Later, staring at her glasses on the table, she quietly resolves never to see him again. Days pass, and Layla, who is usually always in the garden helping Bill Remmer, is nowhere to be seen. At the mansion, a servant informs Matthias that all preparations for the hunting session have been completed. Meanwhile, at Layla's home, Kyle offers to help with the laundry, and she quietly appreciates his presence. Afterward, he suggests going for a walk to her favorite tree near the river, but she declines, saying they can go next time because chores still need her attention. The next 10 days pass in careful avoidance. Layla stays away from the river entirely and does everything she can not to run into Matthias. Kyle notices the change and wonders if something is wrong, questioning why she stays home more than usual. He had expected her to wander more now that she has found her glasses. He also wonders why she is not wearing them, and Layla explains that she only uses them when reading because she is afraid of losing them again. Now she only goes to the garden when Matthias has already left the grounds, and whenever he returns, she immediately slips away, moving as if escaping danger. She resolves to continue living like this if it means avoiding him until the end of summer. One day, they see several men riding on horseback, and Kyle remarks that they must be going hunting. Layla raises her head and catches sight of Matthias among them. She quickly spreads a cloth to shield her view. In her mind, she reminds herself that when summer ends and autumn arrives, Matthias will return to the capital after becoming engaged to Claudine. If she can endure only until the season ends, perhaps peace will return to Arvis. The riders pass by. Kyle asks if she is feeling unwell and suggests that she come to his house instead, but she insists that she will finish her work by evening. She suggests they go inside briefly, though he can tell that she is not truly fine. She continues to believe that once Matthias leaves, Arvis Forest will finally feel peaceful again, and the confusing emotions tied to him will disappear. Still, that evening, she plans to go into the forest to attend to the birds that fall after the hunting. Meanwhile, Matthias remains in the forest longer than expected. He sends the guests back with his men while he continues alone. As the sun begins to set, he resumes hunting birds the way he always has. Yet something feels slightly empty. As the birds fly desperately through the trees, searching for freedom, he realizes that the thrill he once felt is no longer complete. Not far away, Layla walks carefully through the forest. With every few steps, she notices more fallen birds scattered across the ground than usual, and her heart tightens at the cruelty of the sport. Almost finishing her task, Layla unexpectedly walks straight into Matthias. He mutters quietly to himself that she keeps appearing. When he greets her, she notices how calm and composed he looks, as if he had remained there deliberately, anticipating that she would come to tend to the fallen birds. Then something catches her eye. A thin red thread tied to one of the plover chicks that hatched along the river the year before. For a moment, disbelief washes over her. How could a bird that had survived migration, endured winter, and returned from distant lands end like this? The weight of it settles in her chest, a mixture of sorrow and helplessness. Matthias simply tells her to continue her task. Layla moves carefully through the forest, gathering the fallen birds and checking the nests as best she can. After watching her for a while, Matthias asks about the red thread and why she tied it there. She explains quietly that she had tied the thread so she could see whether the birds that left would return the following year. But she never imagined their reunion would happen like this. Matthias notices the condemnation in her expression and asks what the problem is. These are his lands, his hunting grounds, his birds. Layla hesitates. Then she answers slowly that to the birds, the forest is not his land at all. It is their home, the place where they were born and raised. Matthias asks why he should care about the feelings of birds. Layla knows arguing with him is pointless, but she still insists that such cruelty is unnecessary. Even the smallest life deserves a measure of respect. A quiet determination rises inside her. She reminds herself that if she wants to say this, she needs courage. Matthias asks if she wants hunting to become a kind hunt. Realizing she may have gone too far, Layla apologizes quickly. He watches her and asks again why she cares so much about birds. She senses immediately that the real answer would not interest him. So instead, she tells herself it is better to leave. Frustration and weariness mix together as she turns away. But before she can go far, a gunshot echoes through the forest. Another bird falls? Matthias reminds her that her task is not finished. Layla turns back, pleading quietly for guidance. She asks what she has done wrong and wonders if this is meant as punishment. Matthias answers evenly that he has never punished her. He simply does his job, and she does hers. Still curious, he asks again why she is so fond of birds. Layla's thoughts drift far away, back to the day her mother left her. Since then, birds had always been there. Everywhere she wandered, they followed, hovering nearby, leaving with the seasons, returning again if she waited long enough. They had always come back. That is why she loves them. That is why their absence hurts. She finally asks whether he intends to hunt this way again. Matthias replies simply, "If needed." He glances at his watch, then steps forward. He explains that everything in his world must remain exactly as it should be. Orderly, proper, with no one hiding and no one running. Confusion crosses Layla's face as she asks what he means. Matthias simply tells her to stay in her place and leaves the explanation unfinished. She watches him walk away, trying to understand what place he means. Perhaps she thinks if she finds the answer, he might grant the birds a kinder hunt. But the Duke has no expectations for Layla. All he wants is for her to remain exactly where she belongs, an orphan living in his forest. A curious student who will someday graduate and become a teacher. Always in her place, quietly occupying the space assigned to her, just like everything else in his perfectly ordered world. Because Matthias himself was born into that same order, and over time he grew to become its master. In his world, everything is simple. Everything is clear. To his grandmother and mother, he is the proud heir. To the servants, a generous master. On the battlefield, a capable soldier. To the board members, a reliable businessman. He has always been something to someone. And he fulfills those roles effortlessly. Sometimes, almost too effortlessly. Sometimes it is so easy, it becomes boring. But this is life as it should be. That is the world the Duke knows, the world he has seen, heard, and learned to accept. Yet the lowly orphan living in his forest is different. Layla is nothing in the structure of his world. There is no place in a Duke's life for someone who serves no clear purpose. And yet, somehow, possessing something that is nothing feels strangely satisfying. It is new, unsettling, and oddly pleasant. Her emotions are nothing like the measured, predictable reactions of everyone else around him, and that difference amuses him. Above all, it is her tears that captivate him. A woman who cries with such quiet beauty, enough to make him want to witness it again. Later, he returns to the mansion where Lady Claudine greets him warmly. She asks if he enjoyed his walk and admits she has been waiting for him. She compliments the hunt, remarking how impressive it was and how everyone has been talking about it. The Duke casually suggests that she join them on the next hunt. Claudine politely refuses, laughing softly as she admits that seeing blood so closely might make her faint. She then mentions that she plans to host a gathering at Arvis soon, describing it as a sort of rehearsal. Once they are married, she will be the one welcoming guests, and her mother believes it would be wise for her to practice beforehand. She wishes to invite everyone she chooses and asks if he agrees. The Duke simply accepts. As the short summer night slowly fades, a quiet thought crosses his mind. Perhaps a gentler hunt next time would not be so bad. Meanwhile, in the rose garden, Layla resumes her usual place beside her Uncle Bill, helping with the flowers as she always does. She carries bouquets to the ladies gathered there, and Claudine instructs her to arrange them properly. When Layla asks if she may leave afterward, Claudine requests a small bundle of red roses. Layla nods and leaves to gather them. One of the ladies nearby whispers that Layla's politeness almost feels disrespectful. Another quietly agrees, noting the strange look in her eyes, as if she does not know her place. Claudine gently corrects them, reminding the ladies that Layla has lived a difficult life. She admits the girl may have flaws, but suggests that kindness might guide her better than harsh judgment. The ladies exchange doubtful glances. In their minds, girls like Layla should be taught their position properly before they begin appearing in noble society. Claudine remains thoughtful. She cannot entirely blame the ladies for their opinions. Even she cannot ignore the strange impression Layla leaves behind. There is obedience in the girl, but it does not come from loyalty. It comes from distance. While other noble young ladies eagerly seek Claudine's attention, Layla remains unmoved. Claudine has tried speaking to her many times, yet Layla never reacts the way others do. She simply endures quietly, as though life is something to bear rather than enjoy. And strangely, it is precisely this orphan girl who continues to stir curiosity among everyone around her. Soon, Layla returns with the requested red roses and asks if they will be sufficient. Claudine thanks her, then decides to give her something unexpected: a gift. In her mind, Layla is a poor orphan who still carries herself with the pride of a princess, a girl once deeply moved by the weight of a single gold coin. Claudine offers her an invitation instead, a memory she hopes Layla will remember. The two ladies beside her react with clear surprise. Layla hesitates, confused about why she has been given such a gift. Claudine explains that it is simply a graduation present, something meant to mark a moment she will carry with her in the future. Layla tries to refuse, but Claudine insists, her voice gentle but firm, leaving no room for argument. Later, the Duke walks through town on official business. As he passes a jewelry shop, his eyes briefly fall on a necklace displayed behind the glass. It sparkles brightly in the sunlight. Delicate, elegant, almost mesmerizing. For a moment, he studies it, then continues walking without hesitation, his thoughts already returning to the responsibilities awaiting him. Meanwhile, at Bill's house, the atmosphere feels restless. A maid vents her frustration, complaining about the strange ways of nobles she can never understand. Rumors are spreading quickly. Layla has been invited to attend the Duchess's gathering. Some even whisper that Claudine treats her like a little pet. Bill frowns at the description, clearly disliking it, though he listens quietly as the maid continues speaking. She reminds him that Claudine has called for Layla whenever she felt bored since childhood. Now, with this invitation to a gathering filled with noble ladies, the pressure surrounding Layla seems heavier than ever. The act may be called kindness, but for someone like Layla, it could feel intimidating. Bill understands the maid's concern, yet he quietly reflects. He knows the girl well. Layla is not easily frightened. All she needs to do is appear briefly at the gathering, greet the guests, and leave without causing trouble. The maid studies him with mild disbelief. She remarks that after raising Layla for so many years, he should understand her better than anyone. Bill admits with a faint sigh that he is still deciding where to guide her next in life, still weighing possibilities and futures he cannot fully predict. The maid chuckles under her breath and mutters that his thinking will probably never end. Even when Layla marries, raises children, and he eventually passes away, she suspects he will still be somewhere worrying about what path she should follow. Then a new idea occurs to her. Why not buy Layla a beautiful dress for the party? A surprise gift to honor her appearance among the nobles. Bill is immediately taken aback. He knows Layla too well. If he offered such a gift directly, she would refuse it without hesitation, unwilling to feel indebted to anyone. The maid quickly reassures him that she will give the dress to Layla herself. It will simply appear as a thoughtful gesture. Bill slowly reaches into his belongings and produces a small worn bag filled with money. The maid raises her eyebrows in mild surprise at the amount. She teasingly suggests that he should store his savings in a bank instead of carrying them around in an old bag. Bill calmly replies that the cabin in Arvis is far safer than any bank. Both of them know one thing with certainty. If Layla ever discovered this, she would be furious. The maid promises to keep it secret until the day of the party. As she carefully counts and organizes the bills, she asks for a little more, pointing out that Layla will need more than just a dress if she is going to stand among noble ladies. Without hesitation, Bill adds more money to the pile. Whatever is necessary, everything required to make Layla's appearance remarkable. The maid pauses for a moment, slightly amused by his sudden generosity. In her mind, she imagines Layla arriving at the gathering so radiant that even the noble ladies might feel unsettled by her presence. Just then, Layla enters the cabin. She pauses immediately, noticing the strange atmosphere in the room. Bill and the maid quickly hide the bag and the money as if nothing unusual had happened. Layla looks surprised to see Mona, the maid, standing there with a small selection of snacks. She considers sitting down for a moment to share a quick meal together, but Mona quickly refuses, insisting she has other matters to attend to. After Mona leaves, Bill quietly asks Layla what she plans to do about the invitation. Layla answers simply, she will make a brief appearance and leave soon after. She also mentions that she will attend with Kyle, since Dr. Ettman will be present at the gathering as well. Bill feels a quiet sense of relief hearing that. The young man is finally beginning to prove himself useful. He asks if she needs anything, perhaps a dress for the occasion. Layla immediately refuses. She insists she will only stay for a short time anyway. Bill studies her silently. The more important the event, the more carefully one should dress. Yet Layla clings stubbornly to her modest habits. She laughs lightly and insists that her school uniform will be perfectly fine. She does not want to become a burden to anyone. Bill notices the quiet struggle hidden beneath her words, the way she constantly restrains herself, limiting what she allows herself to want. He wishes he could comfort her somehow, but the words never come. Madame Mona had been right about Layla all along. Sensing his concern, Layla gently takes his hand and reassures him that she is perfectly fine. For a brief moment, Bill wonders who is really comforting whom. That night, Layla wakes abruptly from another vivid nightmare. The memories pull her back to childhood, back to the long years when she wandered from one relative's home to another, back to the bullying, the beatings, and the constant fear of being abandoned again. In those days, survival meant one thing: work without stopping, move quietly, become invisible. Crying was never an option. She had learned to smile even when tears burned behind her eyes. She practiced brightness over sorrow because the world had no patience for a crying orphan. Eventually, she crossed the border into Berg completely alone, clinging to the final hope she had left. If that hope failed, the orphanage would be waiting. She remembers forcing a brave smile that day. Then she remembers Uncle Bill's eyes when he first saw her. Kind, warm, sympathetic. For the first time in years, she felt the warmth of something that resembled a family. Those memories remain etched permanently in her heart. Layla slowly rises from bed and opens the window. The cool breeze of early morning drifts into the room, and for a moment, the nightmares finally fade. The Duchess's party awaits Layla that night. Nervousness lingers in her chest, but it is tempered by quiet resolve. She tells herself she will attend bravely, stay only long enough to be polite, and then leave before drawing unnecessary attention. As she prepares breakfast in the small cabin, her thoughts drift briefly to Lady Claudine. Layla cannot help but think that someone like her, raised among luxury and certainty, could never truly understand a life shaped by survival and fear. Bill notices that she has woken unusually early and greets her warmly. For him, for this small, safe home filled with care and quiet comfort, Layla feels she would endure anything. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, a servant finishes preparing the Duke for the evening's gathering. The man reports that everything has gone smoothly. Someone left about an hour earlier, he says, so the items that needed to be delivered should already have reached their destination. The Duke acknowledges the report with a small nod of thanks, though his thoughts are already moving elsewhere. He has already heard the news that Layla has been invited to the party. The information reached him through his mother, accompanied by praise for Claudine's kindness and generosity. The idea strikes him as faintly ridiculous, yet he does not object. In his mind, he pictures the scene that will unfold if he says nothing. Claudine will likely bring Layla before the assembled nobles dressed in modest clothing, surrounding her with sympathy and pity. Humbling that irritating girl's quiet pride would probably give Claudine great satisfaction. But the Duke decides something else. If there is amusement to be found, it will belong to him alone. Sharing what is his has never been something he enjoys. The thought of someone else claiming that pleasure irritates him more than he cares to admit. Elsewhere in the mansion, Hessen quietly moves several gift items prepared by the chef on Bill's behalf into the Duke's chamber. At the same time, replacement items are carefully repackaged and delivered to the cabin as if they came directly from Bill. Hessen asks what should be done with the remaining pieces. The Duke responds with quiet indifference. Dispose of them. What becomes of them does not interest him. At the cabin, Layla stares at the gifts that have arrived with a mixture of amazement and disbelief. She cannot help wondering how much money her uncle must have spent. Bill, however, is thinking something very different. He had expected Mona to prepare something thoughtful, perhaps even elegant. But what lies before them now goes far beyond what he imagined. Even to his untrained eye, the clothing, shoes, gloves, and the boutique employee who delivered them personally all suggest an extraordinary price. His attention lingers on the necklace. For a moment, he wonders if Mona charged him for that as well. Still, he pushes the thought aside. He had already decided to spend generously enough. The only thing that truly matters is that Layla can attend the party without feeling out of place. If he handles everything himself, she will not need to worry about any of it. Though he knows Layla too well, she worries about everything. Layla studies the ensemble carefully. It is far more than she ever expected. Bill reminds her that it is only for one day. She intends to attend briefly and return immediately afterward. Her modesty surprises him again. Even now, she hesitates to accept something that was meant to protect her dignity. Bill reminds himself once more that Layla hates the feeling of being a burden. Compared to what he would like to give her if circumstances allowed, these gifts are still very small. Still, a mischievous thought crosses his mind. What if she refuses them? He considers the possibility seriously. If she does refuse, he could simply throw the items away. She would never even know they existed. The thought makes him regret his words almost immediately. Just then, someone calls his name. Bill turns to see Kyle approaching. For a moment, he reflects on how he once believed the gluttonous boy would remain childish forever. Yet now, properly dressed, Kyle carries himself like a young gentleman. Kyle asks why Bill is standing outside and wonders where Layla might be. Bill answers in his usual vague way, while Kyle mentions that the party will begin soon. Then the door opens. Layla steps outside. Both men fall silent. For a moment, neither of them can hide their astonishment. Bill quickly regains his composure and turns to Kyle. "Today," he says firmly, "the boy will stand in his place." Kyle must take responsibility for protecting Layla throughout the evening. Kyle nods quietly, accepting the duty without hesitation. Layla moves closer to him, whispering nervously that she feels strange wearing such unfamiliar clothing. Kyle reassures her with a soft smile. Then, gently but firmly, he urges her forward. She hesitates again, but Kyle insists in a calm voice suited for the moment. Tonight, he reminds her, she should see him not merely as a childhood friend, but as her escort. Layla finally accepts Kyle's reassurance and resolves quietly to do her best. Before leaving, she shares a brief and affectionate farewell with Uncle Bill. He watches the two of them walk away from the cabin together, hoping she will not spend the evening worrying, hoping that, just for tonight, she might allow herself to enjoy something. When they arrive at the Grand Hall, Layla pauses once more at the entrance. The scale of the place, the lights, the elegant guests. It all feels overwhelming. She glances at Kyle again, searching his face for reassurance about her appearance. Kyle studies her for a moment and nods with quiet confidence. She looks perfectly fine. More than fine. He gently encourages her to trust him and simply follow his lead. Layla takes a small breath and nods. For tonight, she decides she will try to silence the doubts in her heart. Together, they step inside. Across the hall, unnoticed among the gathered nobles, the Duke watches her arrival. And the faintest hint of amusement appears in his eyes. The night has only just begun. The Duke watches Layla from a distance, quietly observing the way she holds herself. Despite the simplicity of her outfit, there's an effortless grace about her that draws his attention. Even without makeup and dressed simply, she exudes a beauty that commands notice. His gaze lands on the emerald necklace she wears, reminding him of the moment he first saw it earlier when he was heading to the meeting point. Their eyes meet briefly before she quickly looks away, her calm composure shifting in the presence of so many eyes. Though he continues greeting familiar faces, a part of him keeps drifting back to Layla, as if his senses are naturally attuned to her presence. Soon, Claudine brings Layla over to introduce her to a group of ladies, explaining that Layla was raised by a gardener at Arvis estate, and the Duke and Duchess allowed her adoption after she was found alone, an orphan with nowhere to go. The ladies exchange surprised glances, their curiosity piqued by the unexpected revelation. Claudine goes on to mention that Layla is about to graduate and plans to become a teacher soon. The ladies murmur their approval, remarking on how impressive that sounds, adding that Claudine's nurturing nature must be part of why the Herhart family holds her in such high regard. The conversation then shifts to Claudine's engagement, though she gently notes that it hasn't been officially announced yet. It's at this point that the Duke steps into the circle, and Claudine introduces him to her friends, including Layla. She mentions that Layla looks especially different today, and Layla greets him politely, though there's a faint blush on her cheeks. Claudine can't help but wonder how Layla manages to keep calm, even when others subtly insult her. But when she's in front of the Duke, Layla's composure falters. She remembers her mother's advice, that it wouldn't be wise to keep someone like Layla too close to the Duke. Claudine's thoughts briefly return to the hunting trip in the forest, where she felt an unsettling sense of discomfort when the Duke suddenly went off for a solitary walk alone after sending everyone back. That memory still lingers in her mind. Even now, she wonders how Layla managed to put together such a lovely outfit, especially the necklace. It looks too elegant to be fake. Kyle soon arrives, asking if he can take Layla to meet his friends. Claudine briefly wonders if Kyle played a part in turning Layla into this princess-like figure tonight, but she gives her permission for them to go. Kyle thanks her before leading Layla away. As they step out, Claudine comments once again on how beautiful Layla looks and compliments her necklace. Layla responds with a soft, polite thank you. Once outside, Layla thanks Kyle quietly. He wonders why she remains so patient with people who treat her poorly, insulting her openly while she doesn't seem to care. Layla simply replies that it doesn't bother her. She's an orphan. She owes everything to Uncle Bill, and she's working to become a teacher. She doesn't take those remarks to heart because, as she explains, people have many sides to them. She encourages Kyle to go since many people are waiting to meet him, including his mom. Kyle, though still puzzled, insists that he came to be her partner tonight, not to meet anyone else. But then his mother appears, asking why he hasn't been mingling with the other guests. She reminds him that there are people waiting to meet him. Kyle answers that they actually want to meet his dad. His mom asks if he is ignoring her and adds that Lord Norma wants to see him. Layla gently tells him to listen to his mom. Kyle asks what she will do, and she reassures him that she will wait right there. His mom thanks Layla for understanding. Kyle, a little reluctantly, agrees to go with her. But before leaving, he tells Layla he'll be back soon and that she should wait for him. Now alone, Layla reflects that her role for the evening is finished. All that's left is to wait for Kyle to return. She remembers when Uncle Bill tried to convince her that the dress and accessories were cheap, but she can't bring herself to agree. To her, they are far too lovely to be anything but real. She wonders how something that's supposed to be an imitation can look so beautiful, and figures that might be why Lady Claudine complimented them. Still, she feels it wasn't a sincere compliment. Perhaps more of a polite version of scorn or pity, but it doesn't bother her. After all, they came from Uncle Bill, and that's what matters to her. Soon, Layla notices the Duke and Lady Claudine walking out of the hall, engaged in quiet conversation. Claudine comments on how much she enjoys summer, particularly the beauty of the nights. But the Duke seems uninterested, which surprises her. She always thought he liked summer, but she doesn't judge him for it. In fact, she quietly admires how composed he is, unaffected by small, trivial things. It strikes her as noble, even elegant. The Duke, noticing the silent approval in her gaze, feels a small sense of satisfaction. Claudine steps closer to the Duke and teasingly asks for a kiss, suggesting they might need at least a little passion. He agrees, acknowledging her point. As he gently places his hand on her neck, Layla, who isn't far off, recalls the moment when the Duke had touched her own face. The Duke leans in to kiss Claudine, and as their lips meet, his eyes briefly drift toward Layla. She remembers those fleeting moments she shared with him and decides quietly to slip away. The Duke pauses and asks if they should continue, to which Claudine confidently responds that they'd make a great couple. Meanwhile, Layla checks her leg and notices a small injury. She considers going home, but remembers she promised Kyle she'd wait for him. Deciding to be patient for a while longer, she heads to the garden. Slipping off her shoes, she sits down, letting the calm of the garden surround her. Her thoughts keep drifting back to the kiss between the Duke and Claudine. She wonders why they acted so boldly when someone else was nearby. In the end, she dismisses it, deciding that to them, servants are probably nothing more than furniture. It doesn't really matter. Meanwhile, back in the party hall, Lady of her heart reflects on the prestige of her household. She notes that the Eatman family and the House of Arndt make a well-suited match. If both families can strengthen their bond, it would be mutually beneficial. Kyle's mother, observing quietly, thinks about the Baron's Arndt's daughter, who is about Kyle's age. She imagines that marriage will soon be on her mind, and this opportunity seems perfect for both families. However, she notices that Kyle remains entirely focused on the orphan, Layla. She sighs inwardly, reminding herself that guiding her son is her responsibility. She decides that the introduction to the Arndt family should happen immediately. The Duke, watching from a distance, observes his grandmother playing matchmaker. He considers that while the Eatmans don't hold titles, they are wealthier than the Arndts and have a strong reputation. A marriage between the two families might make sense despite the difference in social standing. Shortly after, Kyle tells his mother he's leaving, but she insists that he stay, noting that everything being arranged is for his benefit. It would be rude for him to leave now. Kyle wants to escape, but he can't bring himself to disappoint his mother. The Duke watches silently. It's obvious how Kyle's first love will end. Kyle Ettman, loyal and handsome, will never let go of his role as a well-mannered son. With his ambitious mother and his obedience, Layla will be quietly left behind, abandoned here in the forest where she belongs. The Duke walks up to her in the garden. He finds Layla resting quietly and squats beside her, gently picking up her shoes. She blinks a few times, unsure if she's dreaming. For a brief moment, everything seems surreal. Him there, holding her shoes, his presence so close. He softly asks if she wants her shoes back. When she says yes, he tells her she should cry. Layla frowns, a mix of frustration and disbelief filling her. She wonders if he truly enjoys tormenting her like this, over and over. She glances toward the glowing party hall, hoping Kyle might appear any moment, just as he promised. The Duke comments that Kyle won't be coming. Layla immediately shakes her head, disagreeing. Kyle keeps his promises. He's reliable, far better than the Duke. The Duke smiles faintly, telling her not to be so certain. Layla looks at him, confused and hurt. She wonders why he despises her so much. The Duke shrugs nonchalantly, his expression calm as he admits that seeing her like this, despising her, watching her cry and beg, actually makes him feel good. He enjoys it. Layla froze, her mind struggling to process his words. How could he say something like that? The Duke had simply stated that he was answering her questions, but Layla couldn't decide whether to feel angry or shocked. She pressed him, asking why he singled her out. Why was it only her he treated this way, while no one else seemed to face his cruelty? He answered bluntly, saying it was because she was Layla, and she was nothing. His words hit her harder than any insult she had ever received. Not her relatives, who cast her out so easily. Not her drunk uncle, who insulted and beat her daily. None of them had crushed her heart with such cold indifference. Her chest tightened, a painful mixture of sadness and resignation flooding her. Quietly, almost as if speaking to herself, she apologized, saying she was sorry for daring to live on his estate, for being someone who was nothing. She thinks that perhaps it would have been better if he had never allowed her to stay in the first place. The Duke assured her that he wouldn't have been heartless enough to kick her out, but she softly remarked that he was heartless enough right now, and the sting of those words struck exactly as she had imagined they would. Trying to make sense of it all, she asked him what he planned to do with her now. Would he drive her away? He answered that she didn't need to worry because she was already serving her purpose. Being nothing was enough. He then reminded her that Kyle wasn't coming, so she might as well cry or even beg. Finally, the tears started to fall, warm and soft against her cheeks. The Duke handed her shoes back to her and turned to leave the garden. But he noticed that she was still crying quietly. He thought to himself that her tears, those tears, belonged entirely to him. They washed away the strange, unsettling feeling he had earlier when he watched her from afar while he kissed Claudine. The unease that had lingered seemed to fade with every drop of her tears. In his mind, the Duke acknowledged that Layla now understood the clear line that separated her from Kyle. She understood the significance of their social status and the reason he had never returned to her before. After a while, Layla rose and made her way back toward the party hall, walking with her usual brisk, purposeful pace. She instructed a passing servant to let Kyle know that she had gone home. Meanwhile, the Duke had instructed a servant to bring Count Klein to the second-floor terrace. He was well aware that the Count had already left, but it was simply an excuse to buy time. Layla walked through the garden, her steps steady, not once glancing back at the party. The Duke watched her, observing how self-contained she was. She seemed indifferent to everything except her own choices. She had no reason to stay at the party anymore, and she seemed to know it. Eventually, the servant returned with the news that Count Klein had already retired for the evening, and then went to inform Kyle that Layla had left. The Duke was sure that even if Kyle managed to slip away from his mother and came looking for her, it would be too late. She had left, and the tedious Midsummer Night's party would carry on as though nothing had changed, leaving Layla quietly apart from it all. The next morning, she moved around the kitchen, urging Uncle Bill to hurry so he wouldn't miss his train. He lingered by the doorway, his face creased with worry, glancing back at her. The house felt quieter without his usual presence, and he couldn't shake the thought that she would be alone for the next few days. Layla tilted her head, a small smile playing on her lips, brushing off his concern. 3 days weren't so long, she told herself, and he had to attend the ceremony, the funeral of his brother. Bill muttered that it had been decades since he'd truly connected with his late brother and shrugged, saying no one would even miss him if he didn't attend. He stayed at the doorway a little longer, the air heavy with unspoken thoughts. His gaze softened as he finally asked if anything had happened between her and Kyle. Layla shook her head, and relief washed over Bill's face. Still, a frown remained, puzzled by Kyle's recent absence. She casually explained that both of them were busy, Kyle with his college entrance exams and her with studies and errands. Bill chuckled lightly, conceding that he was worrying for nothing. But then he paused, thoughtful. If she got scared while he was away, Kyle could always come over, he suggested. A fleeting shadow passed across his face, a moment of doubt about trusting Kyle, but he quickly brushed it off. He reminded her to keep the doors and windows locked, even with the summer heat. His hunting gun hangs in his room, a quiet sentinel in the corner. Layla nods, imagining it there beside her at night, guarding her against whatever might come. She promises to eat well, study hard, and keep herself safe. But then Bill adds one more thing. If Kyle stays past sunset, a firm poke with a shovel will surely make him leave. Layla raises an eyebrow, wondering aloud if it really needs to go that far. Bill's face softens, and a grin spreads across his features as he recalls Kyle at the party. The young man had grown into an adult, no longer the same boy from before. The look in his eyes that night had been unsettling, even intimidating. Bill jokes lightly to ease the tension before reminding her that Mona, the servant who prepared her party dress, will be watching over her. Layla nods, offering a quiet thank you, and they share a brief, warm goodbye. Once alone, Layla smooths down her dress and straightens her posture, trying to look poised and grown up. Yet, a subtle unease settles in her chest. 3 days suddenly feels like a long time. Meanwhile, at Kyle's house, a small bird delivers a folded letter. Kyle quickly reads the message, his eyes skimming the words. Layla has an appointment. She's going into town today, helping in the garden and then the library. The pattern is clear: appointments, errands, and trips into town. The meaning hits him like a brick. She's avoiding him. Frustration bubbles inside him, but he doesn't blame her. He remembers the fuss he made about being her partner, about protecting her, and how he left her alone at the party. His fists slam against the table, the sound reverberating through the room. From the living room, his mother frowns, curious about the noise. Kyle, feeling foolish and powerless, realizes the truth. He can't control this, and the thought of losing her troubles him deeply. Impulsively, he makes a decision. He hops on his bicycle and pedals away in a rush, the wind stinging his face. At Uncle Bill's place, Layla's eyes drift over the clothes before lifting to meet Kyle as he bursts into view. He slows down, catching his breath, and bows slightly, apologizing. Layla shakes her head, a faint smile teasing her lips. Whether his words are lies or excuses doesn't matter anymore. He's here now. He admits that he still feels guilty for leaving her at the party. She reassures him, though her thoughts drift back to that day, the long-forgotten lesson that they belong to different worlds. She had always known it, yet chose to ignore it because of her feelings for him. Memories flood back. Kyle, the first to reach out during her lonely childhood, who never saw her circumstances as flaws, who showed her kindness when most others turned away. She remembers introducing him to Uncle Bill, the warmth at the dinner table, how that evening felt like a bridge connecting her past to something brighter. Walking home that night, she'd pondered how a child must grow into an adult, carrying pieces of both worlds. Now, with quiet certainty, she decides to let go of her dear friend for his sake. She voices this softly, the words almost swallowed by the air, saying it's time they begin to grow apart. Kyle, startled, asks what she means, wondering if she saw that night clearly. She nods and adds that it's necessary. The only way to stay good friends in the long run is to keep some distance, preserving the bond they both treasure. Kyle frowns, disbelief flashing across his features. He grips her hand, a silent protest in his touch. Losing her, letting this distance grow. He can't accept it. His heart insists on closeness, but Layla's resolve stands firm. With a quiet sigh, she turns toward the kitchen, offering a gentle invitation, and Kyle follows, curiosity mingling with hope. Lunch is waiting, but so is the unspoken understanding between them. The delicate dance of friendship and boundaries has only just begun. At the Duke's estate, Rietta's attention shifts to a little bird fluttering nearby. It chirps and hops around, completely unafraid, and he can't help but wonder how many lives the tiny creature believes it has. Even more puzzling is the thought of Matthias allowing it to live, sparing it when so many other fragile creatures face cruel fates. His thoughts then turn to Claudine, imagining what she might wear to her engagement party. A yellow dress comes to mind. Surely the Duke would adore her in it, just as he dotes on the bird. But Claudine dislikes yellow. It feels too vulgar to her, too bright for the image of refinement she wishes to project. Riette muses aloud that maybe a yellow dress wouldn't be the best choice. But soon, Claudine will be the lady who surpassed the princess, and that, Riette thinks, will matter more than anything else. The Duke nods thoughtfully, agreeing with what everyone else has been saying. Riette playfully prods him, curious about how it really feels to surpass the princess, to take the place of honor in the house of her heart. She falls silent after that, only poking him lightly with a needle. A sharp yelp escapes him, and she laughs, telling him enough with the tasteless jokes. The conversation turns to the Duke's future, when he'll leave the military, and whether he'll be able to focus entirely on the family business once he's engaged. The Duke answers calmly, saying staying in the royal guard for a year or two won't hurt. Tradition runs deep in his family, and after his discharge, Duke Matthias will be a more honorable duke than any before him. The discussion drifts toward their engagement, the future, and the small details of their life together. Eventually, the Duke tells them to relax as long as they need. When Riette asks where he's going, he simply mentions work at the guest house. He sets out, intending to spend the afternoon at the guest house until dinner, but his steps falter when he pauses and looks around. Somehow, he finds himself on the path leading to the gardener's cottage. He doesn't like it when his emotions take the reins, when the carefully crafted order of his life begins to feel disrupted. Yet his feelings for Layla have a persistent way of forcing their way to the surface. His gaze follows her, almost without thinking. His senses sharpen, a quiet heat rising deep inside him. He fights against it, reminding himself that desire should not take precedence. But it does. Against his will, it does. Meanwhile, Layla is precariously perched on a tree, calling out for help. She tests the branch beneath her, careful not to put too much weight on it. A fall could break her leg. Uncle Bill is away, and just the thought of it makes her stomach churn. A few minutes earlier, she had seen Kyle off after lunch, then started walking home when a soft chirping caught her attention. On the ground below, a tiny baby bird cried, just recently hatched from a nest high up in the backyard tree. She had decided to return it, carefully climbing down, but her footing had slipped. Her fingers barely caught a branch, but she knows it's only a matter of time before she falls again. Desperation fills her as she calls out for Kyle, hoping he's close enough to hear her. Then she sees him. Except it's not Kyle. The Duke appears, his presence solid and commanding. He wonders aloud why she climbs trees so often, asking if she needs help. Layla, still calling for Kyle, is irritated to see it's not him standing there. The Duke's voice cuts gently through her panic, telling her that Kyle won't come. Layla snaps at him to go away, insisting he can't help. But the Duke doesn't leave. Not one to walk away from a situation left unresolved, he offers to call for help. Judging by her height in the tree, he muses that Kyle's father might be more useful than the boy himself. Layla's mind races. If her legs survive this ordeal, the first thing she'll do is kick this obnoxious man who stands far too close. The branches sway violently, her grip faltering, her heart pounding. She falls silent for a moment, thinking, planning, resisting. Terror drives Layla to plead, her voice a mere whisper against the rustling of the leaves. The Duke, swift and decisive, sheds his coat and moves with a controlled strength. Layla slips and starts to fall, but he catches her without a second thought. Her body remains unharmed, but her heart beats wildly in her chest. A dizzying thrill courses through her, and as her eyes flutter open, a moment of calm settles over her, only for unfamiliar sensations to creep in slowly, one after another. She feels the weight of his body against hers, his firm presence pressing into her back and head. His heartbeat is loud in her ears, thudding steadily against her chest. He had acted as though her fall didn't matter, as if he was indifferent to her fate. Yet here he was, holding her. Embarrassment flushes through her, sharper than any insult she's ever received. She remembers how she had first dismissed him, ordering him away, only to call out for him when things went wrong. She wonders, with a pang of discomfort, if he's quietly laughing at her, though she can't be sure. She shifts, trying to rise and thank him properly, but her body is frozen, her mind racing. There's an unfamiliar flutter in her chest, something she hasn't felt before, something that makes it hard to focus. As she attempts to pull away, he catches her with a light but firm touch, gently guiding her to stay still. His words from earlier resurface, reminding her to behave like a lady. Climbing trees and falling from them doesn't exactly align with the image of a lady. She can't help but retort, questioning why she should bother with being a lady when he himself doesn't act like a gentleman. Surprise flashes in his eyes, but it quickly shifts to something else, an emotion she can't quite place. He leans closer to her, and the air between them grows thick with tension. Layla's thoughts spiral back to the guest house, remembering the playful words she had thrown at him before, calling him the finest gentleman in all of the Berg Empire. Now, she realizes the mistake she made, the misjudgment she had let slip from her lips. His fingers brush against her face, slow and deliberate, a quiet reminder of the control he's held all this time. Layla feels it, the restraint, the strength behind it, and she can't help but feel a strange mixture of disbelief and gratitude that she hadn't expected. Before she can find her words, he leans in, and the kiss comes quickly, almost fierce in its intensity. Her thoughts blur, her protests dying in the heat of the moment. Everything around them fades, the swaying leaves, the pale sky, and the sharp, unwavering gaze in his eyes. Every time her gaze meets his, it feels as though she's an exposed creature, vulnerable under the watchful eye of a predator. She tells herself that he feels nothing, that she means nothing to him, just as she had seen him step on a coin without a flicker of care or calmly watch a bird fall to the ground. In his presence, her insignificance is absolute. But despite her reasoning, the intensity of his gaze lingers, pressing into her, tightening her chest. Her thoughts scatter, leaving her disoriented and overwhelmed. After what seems like an eternity, he finally pulls back, his eyes still fixed on her, sharp and unreadable. Without another word, he gathers his coat and walks away, leaving her in a fog of confusion, heat, and something she can't quite name. As the Duke walks away, the memories of the moment keep flashing through his mind, repeating over and over. The moment he had held Layla in his arms had wiped away all reason. In that instant, all that remained was a burning desire, raw and almost animalistic, a need that went beyond thought. He finds himself wanting to see that desire through, to give in completely. But after a pause, he pushes the thought away, convincing himself that it is meaningless. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It is ultimately unimportant. Yet, the thought lingers again. If only she hadn't cried. If only he had let himself lose control, acting on the base, raw feelings that had been building inside him. Every time he returns to Arvis, he notices how much the girl has grown. Small changes, subtle shifts that never seemed significant before. But this summer, something feels different. She has made him see things in a way he never has before. Summer in Berg is brief, slipping away far too quickly. Soon, the cool breeze will arrive, and the days of warmth and sunlight will fade as if they never existed, leaving only a lingering memory, fragile and fleeting. Layla feels the same as she fetches water, intending to wash her face. But instead, she pours it over her entire body, letting the cool liquid flow across her arms and chest. It's an attempt to wash away the embarrassment, the fear, and the strange, dizzying feelings swirling in her mind. Meanwhile, at Kyle's house, his thoughts remain consumed by Layla's words. It's time we start to grow apart. Even after she said this, she continues acting as if nothing has changed. They still share meals, laugh together, and talk as though everything is fine. But every time he's near her, a mix of anxiety and numbness washes over him. Yet he goes along, pretending nothing is wrong. He can't bring himself to hurt her. Even as he plays along, he senses that she feels just as conflicted as he does. He doesn't want to burden her with his feelings, hoping instead to quiet the restless storm inside his mind. But despite his best efforts, the uneasy feeling continues to press on him. The sense that something has shifted, something permanent has changed between them. That invisible line she has drawn will not fade away. And deep down, he knows it. If he is to heed his mother's wishes and begin thinking seriously about marriage, he realizes he can no longer delay. It's for the best, he tells himself. But still, he knows that protecting Layla doesn't have to follow anyone else's rules. He can protect both of them, on his own terms, in his own way. With a sigh, he walks down the hall to his father's room, knocking softly on the door. His father calls him in, and Kyle steps inside, carefully maintaining his composure. Despite the heaviness in his chest, he tells his father that he has something important to discuss. His father studies him intently, noticing the seriousness in his eyes. With a slight nod, he gives Kyle permission to speak. Kyle begins by explaining that he thinks his mother believes he is old enough to start considering marriage soon. His father chuckles softly, asking if that's the reason Kyle seems so serious. He adds that his mother sometimes gets ahead of herself, imagining things that aren't quite real yet. He reassures Kyle, telling him that he doesn't share the same urgency. There's no need to rush, and no matter what his mother says, his own opinion differs. There's no reason for Kyle to start thinking about marriage at this moment. Kyle hesitates for a moment, but then continues, steady and certain, letting his words flow naturally. He admits that he has been thinking about marriage in a way that feels important to him. His father leans forward, a little surprised, studying him more carefully. He asks if Kyle really means that he wants to get married. Kyle nods, his decision firm, and says he wants to marry Layla. Not only that, but he wants them to attend college together, to live side by side and to build a life together, continuing their studies while growing closer each day. That night, Layla wakes up again. Sleep has been elusive over the past 3 days, and she wonders if it's the fear of being alone in the empty house, the quiet pressing down around her. Most nights, she stays awake until dawn, restless and uneasy. When sleep finally comes, it's filled with nightmares that tighten around her like a vice, pulling her back into memories she'd rather forget. Sometimes in those dreams, she sees the Duke, and when she wakes, her eyes fill with tears, the weight of the ache in her chest unbearable. She wonders if the memory of the Duke and the events of that afternoon will linger in her mind like a shadow, haunting her for years to come. She wants to erase everything from her mind. During the day, Layla buries herself in work, pushing her body until exhaustion is supposed to drag her into sleep. But the more she tries to run from the memories, the more stubborn they become, clinging to her mind and turning clearer, sharper, almost like they are determined to stay. The lack of sleep leaves her weak, but she refuses to fall apart completely. Uncle Bill is coming home today, and she has already decided that she must look fine when he returns. Her thoughts briefly wander to the past, but she quickly shakes them off, refocusing on the present. She reminds herself that once Uncle Bill is home, she'll finally feel the relief she's been waiting for. Once he is back, everything should feel normal again. The fear of being alone, the memory of that cruel first kiss, the confusing emotions she cannot name. Surely all of it will settle once he is home. But as the day slips toward evening, Layla begins to worry. Uncle Bill still has not returned, and the house feels emptier by the minute. Her mind immediately drifts to the worst possible thought, remembering an article she once read about train accidents where many lives were lost at once. Her heart tightens as she imagines the worst, wondering if something like that could be the reason he hasn't returned yet. That is how she has always survived, imagining the worst first. So reality will not catch her completely defenseless. If she can brace herself mentally, she might be able to face the reality with some semblance of composure, or at least attempt to. Usually, she can prepare herself that way. But this time, because it is Uncle Bill, she is not sure she can. One fear leads to another until her thoughts become impossible to stop. Then, suddenly she remembers her mother. The candy. The promise that she would go far away but come back again. And Layla wishes, even now, that her mother had never said those words, because all that promise left behind was emptiness, waiting, and broken hope. Her mother had been too beautiful for the small life of a poor man's wife, and in the end, she left them behind with nothing but rumors trailing after her. People whispered that she had become the mistress of some aristocrat or married a wealthy merchant and moved to a distant country. The gossip broke her father's heart and did nothing to help him find her mother. Over time, he gave up on work and sank deeper into drinking, becoming a shadow of the man he once was. It felt as though there was no place for her in his forsaken heart. At times, he couldn't even bear to look at her, unable to face the reflection of her mother in her face. Yet, she continued to cling to hope. She believed that if her mother ever returned, they could return to the happiness they once shared as a family. By the time she finished the last of the candy, a sinking feeling had taken root in her chest. But she forced herself to keep believing in her mother, to hold on to the hope that one day, everything would be right again. That, perhaps, was why she couldn't bring herself to eat the final piece of candy, instead holding onto it like a promise of better days to come. One evening, she walked into her father's room and found him shaking, exhausted from life and grief. Gently, she covered him with a blanket, and he pulled her close, hugging her tightly. He apologized quietly for all the pain, promising that the next day they would go out to buy food and firewood together. She asked if she could come with him, and he agreed. He said he would find work so he could buy her treats, and when the flowers bloomed in spring, they could go to the park together. Her heart lifted at the thought, and with a smile, she drifted off to sleep, holding the warmth of his promises close to her. But in the early hours of the morning, when the faint warmth of his body had faded, her father passed away quietly in his sleep. All she had left were the promises he had made, now nothing more than hollow words, and the single piece of candy he had saved for her. She thought bitterly that he shouldn't have made promises if he was just going to leave her like that. Afterward, her relatives, unsure of what to do with the burden she had become, abandoned her. At last, she placed the final piece of candy in her mouth and bit down hard. The shards scraped against her lips and tongue, a strange combination of sweetness and bitterness that reminded her of all she had lost, all she had longed for. She resolves quietly to herself that she will not allow herself to experience that kind of pain again. She tells herself that Uncle Bill must return safely this time. He cannot leave her alone. And then, she sees him at the door, calling her name. She quickly wipes away her tears, forcing a bright smile to greet him properly. Without a second thought, she runs to him, throwing her arms around him in a warm, tight hug. From the street, the Duke rides by in a car, his eyes catching the reunion. He watches them for a moment before the vehicle moves on. Uncle Bill asks how she's been, and she simply smiles, answering that she's doing just fine. A sense of relief floods through her as she takes in the sight of him. Meanwhile, the conversation between the doctor and his son continues in a calm yet serious tone. Kyle's father asks if he's truly thought everything through in the past few days. Kyle quietly confirms that he has. There's no hesitation in his voice when he says that he's already made up his mind. His father watches him for a moment before gently admitting that he understands how strongly his son feels for Layla. If Kyle didn't love her this much, he wouldn't be holding on to the idea so stubbornly. However, his father explains that they are simply too young to be thinking about marriage, and he believes it would be better for Kyle to focus on his studies for now. Kyle listens, but then he brings up what his mother has been saying. She wants him to marry a young lady from the Arndt family, someone closer to his age. He even mentions Lady Claudine, who is just a year older than him, and yet she's already about to be engaged to Duke Herhart. His father tries to speak again, but Kyle cuts him off slowly, saying that he knows it isn't really about age. He feels his dad just doesn't approve of Layla. He doesn't want to end up with someone he has no interest in, and that is why he's having this conversation. His father can't deny that there's some truth in what Kyle is saying, but he reminds him that marriage is not just about the two people involved. Kyle nods, already understanding that. He isn't trying to pretend that family, reputation, status, and everything else that comes with it aren't important. But despite all of that, he still wants to marry Layla. He explains gently that none of those things can outweigh the person he wants to spend his life with. Kyle speaks with calm honesty about his dreams. He wants to be a good doctor, a good husband, and a good father, just like his dad. But for him, everything begins with Layla. He wants to live a sincere, steady life with her, building a family together. With her by his side, he believes he can accomplish anything. Without her, he's not sure his life would have the same meaning. He goes on to say that she is already a real part of him, and the sides of him that both his mother and father admire have grown because of her. Maybe she's the one who helped him become a better person in the first place. That's why he cannot imagine losing her. Quietly, he pleads with his father, asking him to help him live the life he has always dreamed of. The next day, Claudine prepares for the big event, her mother already emotional, almost on the verge of tears as she watches her daughter get dressed. Claudine softly laughs, telling her not to cry, but her mother struggles to hold herself together. Claudine recalls Riette's words about how it must feel to rise above the princess and become the lady of the renowned house of Herhart. The memory brings a small, satisfied smile to her face. The Emperor of Berg had tried so hard to secure the position of Duchess for his beloved daughter, but the Herhart family had chosen Claudine instead. She knows it's not because they love her, but the logic behind it is clear. She is a noble bride, with a dowry that can rival even the wealth of princesses. Yet, she doesn't need to be treated like royalty. When she thinks of her family name standing proudly beside the powerful name of Herhart, she doesn't consider the decision unreasonable. In fact, she feels a sense of gratitude. After today's engagement, her status will be higher than that of a princess of Berg. That single thought fills Claudine with a warm sense of satisfaction, almost as if she could love the entire world. Even the husband she doesn't love, and even his yellow bird. Soon, she asks her maid, Marie, if anyone has arrived yet. Marie responds that the person should have been there by now. Claudine glances outside and spots Layla. Her mother looks uneasy, unable to believe that her daughter has sent for Layla again. Claudine explains that she needed fresh flowers for her hair, so she had sent for her. She even adds that it might be nice to receive congratulations from an old friend. Earlier that day, Claudine's maid had visited Bill's house to fetch Layla, instructing her to decorate the manor with flowers for the event. Layla understands that the flowers weren't the real reason for the invitation, though. By the time she reaches the 4th floor of the East Wing, her palms feel damp and her lips go dry. Every step feels heavy, almost like she's walking toward a judgment she can't avoid. She tries to steady herself, reminding her heart that what happened between her and the Duke that day was nothing more than an accident. He likely brushed it off just as quickly as she had. He hasn't stepped into the woods since, and that alone convinces her that he's moved on. She quietly decides to let it go too. She knocks softly on the door and tells them she's brought the flowers they requested. When she enters, Claudine turns toward her, already dressed, and casually asks what she thinks of her appearance. Layla answers honestly, saying that Claudine looks beautiful. Claudine then asks if she thinks the Duke will feel the same. Layla hesitates for a moment before answering that, yes, the Duke will. Claudine smiles as though that answer satisfies her completely. Layla congratulates her on the engagement, and Claudine accepts it with confidence, saying that the ceremony will be perfect. She tilts her head slightly and signals to her maid. The maid steps forward, places a few coins in Layla's hand, and tells her to be grateful. Layla doesn't argue. She simply leaves the room and walks quickly, hoping she can make it home without crossing paths with the Duke. But as she reaches the stairs, she freezes. The Duke is coming up with the servant beside him. The servant greets her politely, and she steps aside in response, expecting the Duke to pass by without sparing her a second thought. But he pauses for a brief moment, his gaze locking onto hers. His eyes linger on her just long enough to make her heart tighten before he continues up the stairs without saying a word. Later, at sunset, Layla sits quietly by the river, her thoughts wandering to the bustling manor. She imagines how busy it must be by now. Lady Mona had expressed concern earlier, worried that there would be more guests than usual tonight. Even though she's still within the same estate, this quiet spot by the water feels like a different world compared to the noise and bright lights of the manor. Her mind drifts again, and suddenly she realizes something she had never noticed before. The Duke's eyes are the same color as the candies she had kept for so long. The same color tied to her old memories, the same color she associates with her sorrow. Someone calls her name, pulling her out of her thoughts. It's Kyle. She asks how he knew she was here, and he smiles, answering that he simply had a feeling. This place has always been her favorite, especially the spot on the tree above her. She climbs down from the branch and meets his gaze. Noticing how neat and dressed up he looks, she jokes lightly, asking if he's preparing for the engagement party. He looks away, saying no. Then, he pauses, takes a slow breath, and brings out the bouquet of flowers he had been hiding behind his back. With steady eyes and sincere words, he tells her that the two of them should get married. As summer draws to a close, the Herhart and Brandt families host a grand celebration to mark the engagement between Matthias and Claudine. Countless guests gather, eager to witness the event. While everyone knows the engagement was carefully arranged by both families, with every benefit weighed and discussed, the crowd sees none of that. To them, Matthias and Claudine are the perfect couple, fresh-faced, steady, and flawlessly matched, as if painted straight out of a storybook. Since childhood, the people have always created stories around them, filling in the blanks with their own expectations and dreams. For years, rumors about their supposed love have been whispered in every corner. Meanwhile, another rumor circulates among high society that the emperor's youngest daughter was rejected by the Duke and is now struggling to find a suitable partner. This news becomes the latest topic of discussion among the nobles, adding to the noise of the season. Time moves on, and soon autumn arrives. After the overwhelming rush of guests, Arvis estate returns to a quiet stillness. Matthias is sent to join the royal guard and leaves for the empire's capital. With him gone, Claudine returns to her family's estate. Layla breathes a deep sigh of relief when she hears that the Duke has left. The knowledge that he won't return for at least a year allows her to let go of the tension she had been carrying. No longer does she need to walk around the estate feeling on edge or avoid certain paths just in case she might run into him. With him gone, she believes her painful memories will no longer be triggered so easily. She even feels more at ease when she visits the mansion now, delivering flowers without the heavy weight of fear. While waiting, she overhears the maids gossiping among themselves. They wonder when the couple plans to marry, as it's been a while since the engagement party. One maid mentions hearing that the wedding will likely take place once the Duke completes his service with the royal guard. The others agree that the wait seems long, but they also note that the Brandt family wants Claudine to live in Arvis after she becomes a wife. Layla's basket is handed back to her, and she leaves the mansion quietly. On her walk home, her thoughts once again turn to the Duke's absence. She tells herself that once she gets her teaching license and starts working, she won't need to worry about crossing paths with him, even if he eventually returns to the estate. Snow begins to fall softly around her, and she watches as the flakes drift down. She thinks that if time continues to move gently and steadily like this, she might one day return to her old life completely. She holds on to that hope close to her heart, gripping it as tightly as she needs. Meanwhile, far away in Ratzi, the Duke steps into the Her Heart residence. He is greeted immediately and informed that two ladies are waiting for him. He already knows it must be his mother and grandmother. They have traveled to attend the youngest princess's wedding next month and plan to stay for a while. The Duke enters the room and greets his mother and grandmother. His grandmother looks at him warmly and asks if he's been well, noting how long it's been since they last saw each other. He responds that he has been well and then turns to greet his mother. The next day, the Duke walks through the garden with his mother. She casually points out how warm the day feels, commenting on how the roses are starting to bloom. The garden feels lively with the flowers opening up, though she quietly admits that it still can't compare to the gardens back at Arvis. As they enjoy the view, she asks once again, just to be sure, if he truly told the Brandt family that he plans to extend his service. He confirms it without hesitation, saying he's thinking of staying for another year. His mother accepts it with little reaction, saying that if that's what he wants, then so be it. However, she's surprised that the royal princess will marry before him, and it seems to bother her a little. She then shifts the conversation, mentioning something amusing happening back in Arvis. She says that Kyle Edmund, the doctor's son, is about to marry soon. The Duke pauses, asking who Kyle is marrying. His mother explains that it's the orphan girl, Layla, and she's not even sure if he remembers her. The Duke responds, saying he doubts Layla fits the Edmund family standards for a suitable bride. His mother continues, almost in disbelief, remarking that it's surprising the Edmunds would choose someone like Layla. She goes on to say that his grandmother had been hoping to find Kyle a proper bride, and now she's upset because she always liked him. Meanwhile, Mrs. Edmund, who had worked so hard to bring a noble girl into the family, is now bedridden because she couldn't stop the decision. Since Dr. Edmund already gave his blessing, there's nothing she can do. Mrs. Herhart talks about how Mrs. Edmund used to carry herself with so much dignity, but her son's choice has ruined any chance for their family to rise into high society. She insists that no noble family would willingly associate with someone who has taken in a peasant orphan as a daughter-in-law. The Duke replies quietly, suggesting that things could still change since they aren't married yet. His mother agrees, but adds that the wedding seems inevitable, as both the doctor and Kyle appear determined. She acknowledges that Layla is indeed beautiful, but she still considers the entire situation to be a disastrous move for the Edmunds. She calls Layla clever, but insists that it isn't fair to blame her. Still, she can't help but think it's childish for Kyle to let love cloud his judgment so completely. She believes his decision has tarnished his family's name, a mistake they won't easily recover from. As she speaks, the Duke, seemingly absent-minded, picks a flower and gently squeezes it between his fingers, his thoughts elsewhere. Later that evening, after his bath, he notices a small bouquet of flowers placed near him and assumes his mother must have brought them. The soft scent of roses fills the room, instantly pulling him back to the memories of summers spent at the estate. Layla had always helped her uncle with the garden, and in a quiet way, she became a part of every summer he spent there. She always carried the faint, comforting fragrance of roses with her, flowers that were nurtured slowly, with care, by someone who truly understood the art of tending to them. As the familiar scent fills his senses, his thoughts drift to Layla again. To him, she has always been an odd kind of misfortune, something beautiful that grew quietly in a place no one expected, deep within the forest. He tries to push the thought away, reminding himself that she means nothing, and that the Edmund name will offer her nothing in return. Perhaps it's better this way. Perhaps her marriage will finally remove her from his life for good. He imagines himself clapping louder than anyone else at their wedding, pleased to see her leave. He whispers her name under his breath, silently convincing himself that when the flowers bloom again, he won't see her. But then a question slips through his mind, one he can't shake. How is he supposed to return to the estate if she won't be there anymore? Frustrated, he sits up, reaching for the letter he had written to request an extension of his service. He reads through it once more, and with steady resolve, he tears it into pieces. On a bright and sunny afternoon, Kyle approaches Uncle Bill with his usual cheerful stride, greeting him warmly. His first question is about Layla, and Uncle Bill tells him that she's at the shed, clearing out some things. Kyle heads in that direction, his smile remaining comfortably in place. He finds her working quietly, and with the same enthusiasm he always carries, he remarks that the weather feels almost perfect. The wind blows with a crisp softness, the sunlight warms the earth, and flowers bloom along the streets, as though celebrating the day. In his eyes, all these small details seem to align, creating the perfect atmosphere for a wedding. He expresses his thoughts honestly, suggesting once again that today is ideal for them to get married. Layla refuses, and he accepts her rejection without losing his composure. He calmly declares that he'll ask again tomorrow. She insists that he should let the matter go, that her mind will not change. But Kyle, with his usual unwavering conviction, believes that people are unpredictable. And because of that, he will try again, undeterred. As always, he speaks with the certainty of someone whose heart has already made up its mind. From a distance, Uncle Bill watches the exchange, and with each rejection, a tightness grows in his chest. He genuinely feels for the boy, unable to ignore the pain he senses in Kyle. He tries to count how many times Kyle has proposed to Layla, each attempt stretching back to the previous summer. And since then, Kyle hasn't missed a single day. He's asked her through autumn, winter, and spring. The number of times has become impossible to track, growing far beyond what Uncle Bill had ever anticipated. He recalls the first time he heard about Kyle's proposal to Layla the previous summer. He had known such a moment might come, but hearing it firsthand still startled him. At the time, he thought Kyle was simply being stubborn, and for a moment he felt an urge to chase the boy off, believing the teenager had lost his sense of reason. He dismissed the proposal as a fleeting impulse, the emotional outburst of a hot-blooded boy who didn't fully understand what he was doing. But after a few days, a realization dawned on him. He had misjudged the situation entirely. Dr. Ettman himself had come to his home, and in a calm, steady tone informed him of his son's serious intentions regarding marriage. Uncle Bill could hardly believe what he was hearing and asked if Dr. Ettman truly meant what he was saying. The doctor confirmed it without hesitation, explaining his plans for the young couple. If Kyle and Layla were to marry, Dr. Ettman wanted to send them both to university, offering to cover the cost of their tuition. The offer took Uncle Bill by surprise, and he asked why the Ettman family wanted Layla specifically when they could easily find a wife for Kyle from a more prestigious background. Dr. Ettman explained that while the world was changing, his love for his son had remained constant. He wanted the best for Kyle, both in terms of status and nobility. But even without those qualities, Layla was still an exceptional person. That was the very reason Kyle wished to marry her. Dr. Ettman then reiterated Kyle's heartfelt explanation that a person's character held more value than anything else, and that Layla inspired him to become the best version of himself. Kyle wanted to be her husband more than anything in the world. The doctor went on to say that Kyle was far too earnest and grounded to be dismissed as a mere emotional teenager. He believed Uncle Bill knew his son well enough to recognize that Kyle's feelings were genuine. Hearing this, Uncle Bill was deeply surprised. But Dr. Ettman continued, suggesting that they observe the situation for a year to see if Kyle's heart remained steady. If Kyle stayed committed, then he would fully bless the marriage. He asked Uncle Bill for his thoughts. Uncle Bill had always hoped Layla would meet someone kind who would offer her a gentle, peaceful future. He never imagined that someone like Kyle, the son of the well-respected Ettman family, would be the one to make such a promise. Among noble families, the Ettman household had an impeccable reputation, and the thought of Layla marrying into that family was overwhelming. When he remembered Dr. Ettman's mentioned sending her to university, a dream Layla had quietly abandoned due to their financial limitations, he could not ignore the weight of the opportunity. For the first time, he felt a deep hope that Layla might accept the proposal. Uncle Bill had always hoped that Layla would marry such a devoted young man and finally experience the happiness and opportunities she once believed were out of reach. A full year passed since his conversation with Dr. Ettman, and the time confirmed something undeniable. Kyle's heart had not wavered in the slightest. His commitment remained just as strong as the day he first expressed his intentions. Layla, on the other hand, remained steadfast in her refusals, holding on to her decision with a quiet resolve that both puzzled and pained her uncle. Watching how things had unfolded, Uncle Bill realized it was finally time for him to step in. One evening, as the sun began to settle low, casting a fading amber glow across the small cabin, he decided to speak openly to her. He explained that, in his heart, he truly believed she should consider marriage. He asked her gently why she kept turning down Kyle's proposals, pointing out that she had an opportunity many others would never receive. He reminded her that by marrying Kyle, she could go to university, open new doors for herself, and step into a broader world. Layla responded softly, but with a firmness that had been shaped by months of thought. The idea of marrying Kyle unsettled her, not because she disliked him, but because she feared that her presence in his life would subject him and his family to ridicule. She believed society would mock them endlessly for accepting an orphaned girl with no noble name into their home. When her uncle pressed her, asking why the opinions of others should matter if she could find happiness, Layla remained resolute. Uncle Bill then informed her that Dr. Ettman fully supported the marriage. He urged her to think only about her own heart and asked directly whether she felt anything for Kyle. Layla answered honestly, admitting that she liked him deeply. She acknowledged that Kyle was perhaps the kindest and most warm-hearted friend she had ever known, and that her affection for him was genuine. But she didn't want to become the cause of mockery or disgrace for him. Uncle Bill then questioned where her confidence had gone. Layla explained that she had finally come to like the person she was becoming. She had learned to walk with her head held high, regardless of what others might think or say. Layla strives every day to become an adult who behaves well and makes her uncle proud. But when it comes to marriage, she feels a sense of uncertainty. She admits that she doesn't believe marriage is necessary for everyone, not even for herself. Uncle Bill looks at her thoughtfully, then asks if she truly intends to spend her entire life tucked away in a cabin beside him. Layla answers quietly that she wants exactly that. She doesn't wish to leave him alone in the forest of Arvis. Now that she has earned her teaching license, she plans to find a job nearby to help with their expenses. Uncle Bill gently shakes his head. The forest will still be here, just as it always has, and he will remain in his role for many more years. Someday, when he grows old and weary, he will step down from being the groundskeeper, but that day has not yet come. He tells her not to worry about him, reassuring her that even if she marries or goes away to university, she will always be like a daughter to him. He adds that men like Kyle are rare in this world. He believes, without a doubt, that Kyle will make a good husband and father. He encourages her to reflect on the future she could have, one where she builds a family of her own, never again facing loneliness. Layla counters that she already has a real family with him, Uncle Bill. He nods in agreement but insists that if they truly are family, she should listen to him. With that, he hands her an envelope containing a train ticket to the capital, Ruthless, along with some money. The university entrance exam is just a week away, and she must start preparing the very next morning. He tells her not to consider refusing, because if she doesn't travel to Ruthless and take the exam, he will assume she doesn't see him as family. The weight of his words settles over her, and she takes the envelope, fully understanding how serious he is. After a moment of hesitation, she timidly asks what will happen if she fails the exam. He simply tells her that he will think about it when the time comes. A new week arrives, pulling her toward a future she never imagined for herself. Layla stands at the train station beside Kyle, the weight of the journey ahead making her feel uneasy. As they prepare to board the train to the capital, she asks if his father will be accompanying them. Kyle explains that one of his father's patients had an emergency, requiring the doctor to return to the hospital. His father sends his apologies, unable to join them after all. Layla feels a knot tighten in her stomach. This will be her first time traveling to Ruthless, and the thought of going so far fills her with unease. She wonders aloud if it's really all right for just the two of them to travel alone. Kyle reassures her, telling her that he knows the way well. He has family in the capital and has visited several times. In the quiet of his mind, he resolves to show her, without hesitation, that she can rely on him. The train soon arrives with a rush of sound and movement. Kyle takes her luggage with steady hands, and she thanks him quietly. But as she steps onto the train, a wave of old memories crashes through her, pulling at her heart with an unexpected force. She thinks about how impossible this journey would have seemed just a short time ago, and wonders how she could ever repay the immense kindness and support Uncle Bill has given her. Despite the fear in her chest, she promises herself that she will return. Meanwhile, Duke Matthias originally planned to extend his service for another year, But after some consideration, he changed his mind and submitted a request for discharge. His grandmother and others try to persuade him to reconsider, but he remains firm in his decision. Colonel Frel feels a pang of disappointment when he receives the letter, but he understands that if the Duke is considering the needs of the entire empire, it may be a greater loss to keep him tied to the military. Still, his words are those of a soldier, and he expresses his respect for Matthias's decision. The Duke thanks him politely. He has always treated his superiors with the utmost respect, even those of lower social standing, a rare quality among other officers of noble birth who often struggled to separate personal matters from their duty. Colonel Frel greatly admires this quality in Matthias, and the fact that he served his first post on the harsh front lines overseas and achieved so much only strengthens that admiration. After exchanging brief farewells with the fellow officers he has served alongside, Matthias heads to the Army headquarters in Ratzi. He meets a few superiors, visits the residence of the Army Chief of Staff, and finally concludes his service as an officer. His plan, which should have gone smoothly, is unexpectedly disrupted by a single piece of gossip about Layla. As he prepares to head back to the mansion, having completed all his business for the day, he sees Layla. He wonders for the first time what she's doing in the capital. He puts on his cap and tells a servant to go on ahead. Layla stands before the Natural History Museum, still marveling at its magnificence on the second day. Even after a full day of exploring it yesterday, it still feels as breathtaking as the first time she laid eyes on it. Kyle had suggested she visit the museum the previous day, and she remembers how it felt like stepping into a little slice of heaven on Earth. The only issue is the sheer size of the museum. There's no way to see everything in one day. She wishes Kyle were here with her today, but she'd insisted he stay home to study for his exam tomorrow. Determined to make the most of her time, she resolves to spend the whole day exploring. If she has time for another visit before they leave, she thinks she might be able to see almost everything. With that in mind, she boldly approaches the grand building, its tall stone columns and wide glass windows inviting her in. Inside, she immediately starts writing in her notebook, her pen moving quickly across the page as she takes notes on what she sees. From a distance, the Duke watches her. She seems so carefree, almost like a child on a picnic. Yet there's a quiet intensity in how she observes everything, how she writes with purpose. She moves through the vast exhibition halls with energy, never once looking tired. Occasionally, she pauses to jot something down with the focused dedication of a scholar. And then, without fail, her face lights up into a smile that brightens the entire hall. The Duke wonders if he should approach her, but hesitates. He knows that the moment he gets too close, that effortless smile will fade, leaving nothing but a trace of the warmth it once held. After a while, she steps outside and spots a tree nearby. She stretches to catch a leaf, reaching as high as she can. The Duke moves silently, stepping closer. Before she can fully register his presence, he gently lifts her up. Once he sets her down, he pulls her just a little closer. She steps back immediately, startled, and he removes his cap in a small but meaningful gesture of acknowledgement. Her heart flutters and she fidgets slightly, recognizing him in an instant. Layla wants to greet him politely and walk away, but she can't ignore the subtle nod of his head, a silent command to follow. Crossing paths with him stirs a rush of memories she has barely managed to suppress, especially the memory of their first kiss. Layla can't help but think that's probably why her heart is pounding so fiercely. Yet, despite the rush of emotions, she can't help but wonder where he's leading her. Soon, he guides her to the cafe where she had lunch with Kyle on their first day in Ratzi. She wonders if he intends to have tea with her, noticing that the people around them are already beginning to recognize him. Unsure of how to respond, she politely says that it's a pleasure to meet him and that she'll be on her way. But he stops her with a quiet, deliberate movement. She realizes he's being cautious because of the crowd. She asks what he's doing, noticing that he's standing directly in her path, and admits that she dislikes the situation. She thinks to herself that this is something they shouldn't be doing. He raises an eyebrow and asks if she's tempted to do something she shouldn't. Layla quickly denies it, but he responds calmly, explaining that he's simply buying a cup of tea for an orphan who lives on his estate, someone he just happened to run into in the capital. He questions what's wrong with offering such generosity. Layla thinks to herself that she can't truly claim to know him. But one thing is certain, he always gets what he wants. The more someone resists him, the deeper they'll find themselves drawn in. Despite her unease, she decides to accept the invitation, sitting down and watching him as he gets his tea. He remains silent as he prepares his drink, and Layla notes to herself that she never imagined she'd see him here in Ratzi. Finally, he asks what brings her to the capital, and she answers honestly. Then he questions why she's there for the college entrance exam when, just the year before, she had wanted to become a teacher. He concludes, with quiet certainty, that she must have accepted Kyle's proposal, reasoning that it's unlikely Mr. Bill would have had the means to send her to college in the capital. Breaking the silence, Layla asks if he's interested in natural history, but his response is as she expected. He isn't. Then she asks if he had an appointment that day. He hints that their meeting here was no mere coincidence. Layla thinks to herself that it must be a coincidence. After all, she's nothing more than a lowly orphan, an object of unwanted kindness and pity. She doesn't want to be anything more to him than that. She firmly declines any further interaction, stating that the only thing she knows for sure is that he dislikes her. He affirms it, his tone cold as he adds that he truly despises her now. Layla, feeling a knot in her chest, tells him that she'll leave so she won't disturb the peace of his estate again. He asks where she plans to go, and she responds that Arvis isn't the only place in the world where she can stay. She wants to leave, but she forces herself not to act impulsively, as she once might have. Instead, she takes a sip of her tea and drops some money onto the table to pay for it. He looks at the money, his voice tinged with disbelief as he questions whether she thinks he needs money from someone like her. She simply answers that she has no desire for him to pay for her tea, letting the moment hang quietly in the air. Layla squeezes her palms together, fully aware of how reckless she's being. But she wants him to understand, at the very least, that this place is not part of his world. He tells her to look at him, but she refuses, the defiance in her voice sharp when she quietly snaps that he shouldn't order her around. She's not his maid. Living in Arvis, thanks to his generosity, doesn't make her his servant, and she wants him to understand that clearly. He asks, almost mockingly, what she is then. Her mind flashes back to the night he made her cry outside the party hall. The memory stings, but she swallows it down, replying softly that she is nothing, just as she has always been and always will be. The Duke stands, taking the money she left on the table, only to return it with a little extra. He says it's only right to compensate her since, after all, she's not his maid, but he's taken her time. With a half smile, he adds that she takes Claudine's coins with proper courtesy, so if she refuses his, she should at least consider it charity for a proper orphan. He even points out that she had no problem accepting a marriage proposal from a man who pitied her, so it would be absurd for her to act proud over a few coins. Layla's tears can no longer be held back. Her chest tightens as they fall, and she thinks bitterly that if tears are all she can give, then she will give them. Maybe then, he won't see her as nothing. That night, when he hears about her engagement to the doctor's son, the Duke resolves to return to Arvis. Yet, part of him desperately wishes she would marry quickly and disappear from his world. Even now, helpless against his own impulses and obsessed with a single girl, he can't help but hope that the tears and wounds he caused her will remain with her forever, if she's going to leave. He leaves soon after, and Layla walks toward a nearby fountain, the weight of everything pressing on her. She watches the people around her toss coins into the water, each hoping for their wishes to come true if a coin lands in the statue's jug. With a quiet decision, she resolves to put the Duke's discarded money to good use. Carefully, she tosses one coin into the fountain, and it lands perfectly in the jug. Surprised and delighted by her luck, she whispers a wish for Uncle Bill to have a long, healthy life. Another coin follows, and she wishes for Kyle to be accepted into medical school. A third coin lands just as smoothly, and she wishes for herself to someday live an honest and good life. As she prepares to throw the last coin for one final wish, a voice calls out from behind her. Turning, she sees Kyle running toward her, breathless and concerned. He asks what she's doing there, saying he's been searching for her everywhere. She remembers that they were supposed to have dinner together and apologizes, admitting she lost track of time. Kyle explains that he had gone to the museum only to find it closed. He searched the nearby area but couldn't find her anywhere. His worry is evident as he admits he was starting to panic. He knew she'd never break a promise, but in a city where she had no connections, his worry had overwhelmed him. She apologizes again, feeling guilty, and as she notices her red eyes, Kyle asks if she's been crying, wondering if something happened while he was gone. She shakes her head and lies, claiming she had a productive day. Kyle, noticing the number of coins she's thrown, expresses surprise that they all landed in the jug. Layla smiles faintly, deciding to toss the final coin for an important wish, but she misses entirely. Kyle asks what she wished for, and then insists on making a wish for her. She protests, saying it would be a waste of money. He reminds her that she just threw several gold coins into the fountain, and she can't really argue with that. Laughing, she persuades him that they should use the money to buy ice cream later, and he agrees without hesitation. As they walk through the streets together, Kyle looks at her curiously and asks about the last wish she wanted to make. Layla smiles, keeping it to herself, and tells him it's a secret. Her response only piques his curiosity further. He keeps glancing at her, trying to guess what it might be. They walk for a while longer before stopping to get their ice cream. She asks if it's okay for him to relax, and he replies that it's fine. Exams only show what someone already knows. Nothing will change by cramming the night before. Layla notices his confident demeanor, especially since she is the one who always crams the night before. He confirms his confidence, joking that it's a necessary skill for a future husband. She falls silent, and he notices, puzzled. He asks her why she's looking at him that way. With a slight chuckle, he admits that he's been thinking about what she's been thinking and asks if she can imagine them as husband and wife. He says he has thought about it many times, but Layla responds that it's hard to picture. They've been friends since childhood, and imagining them as more than that feels strange. He asks if it wouldn't be better than an arranged marriage, and Layla agrees, but she still can't picture them raising a child together. The thought feels odd to her. Kyle is caught off guard when she casually mentions reproduction, asking how she can speak of it so calmly. She responds that it's natural, something every living creature does. She adds that if they were to marry, it would be the next logical step. But even so, the thought still seems strange to her. Kyle envisions a romantic moment, but then he recalls Uncle Bill's advice to think of a shovel to calm himself. He tells Layla to eat her ice cream before it melts, but she insists he listen to her. He laughs and says he can't hear her. Then he glances at the time, noting it's getting late and that he needs to study. He suggests they should head back. Layla, however, hesitates, asking if she can ask him something first. He agrees, and she asks why he wants to marry her. She remembers the Duke's words, that Kyle might pity her, and wonders if that's the reason. Kyle pauses, then asks if he really looks like someone who would marry out of pity. He admits there are people crazy enough to do that, but insists he isn't one of them. He wants to marry her because he loves her, plain and simple. He repeats it, pointing out that if he were pitying her, he wouldn't have kept asking. She's turned him down so many times. Layla thinks about Kyle's words and realizes that his love and kindness make her feel valued, not small or insignificant. She had once hoped they could remain friends for years, but now, with his proposal, it's clear that only two choices remain: marry him or become strangers. She doesn't want to lose him, and in that moment, she knows what she must do. She calls his name and thanks him. Kyle asks why, and she simply says that she loves him. He's stunned, almost forgetting to ask her again. With a smile, he proposes once more, expecting the usual rejection. But this time, to his utter surprise, she accepts. He drops his ice cream in shock, convinced he must have misheard her. Layla confirms, looking into his eyes, that she does want to marry him. He moves closer, pulling her into a tight embrace, holding her as if trying to make sure it's real. She reassures him that it is. Unable to contain his joy, Kyle lifts her up, shouting in happiness, completely overwhelmed by the moment. That night, Kyle dreams of a happy life with Layla. He imagines a house with a garden full of flowers she's carefully tended, children who resemble her in every way. He's catching a glimpse of a beautiful future that's about to come true. When Kyle receives his exam results, he's pleasantly surprised by how much better he did than he expected. Later, Layla meets him and asks how it went. He thinks about calling her Mrs. Etman and wishes he could. Before they head back to Arvis, they take a slow walk around the college campus, the same paths they'll soon walk together as husband and wife. Layla worries, though, because the university has only recently started admitting female students, and only a few are selected. But Kyle remains confident, certain that she'll pass without trouble. He's watched her for 8 years now, and knows her better than anyone. There's no reason for her to worry. He reassures her. She comments on how much he's grown, recalling that they were about the same height when they first met. He notes with a light chuckle that he's now grown tall enough to be her husband. Then he asks how many children she wants. She responds with a smile, saying 5, so they won't be lonely and will always have each other to rely on. Kyle imagines a lively home filled with little faces, each resembling both of them. Every time he sees that hopeful glimmer in her eyes, he can't help but think that maybe he was born to make her happy. He promises to do his best to make sure they have those 5 children. It's a late spring day, and a gentle breeze brushes past them. Kyle feels as if soft feathers are fluttering in his chest, just picturing the days ahead with Layla. It's a moment he knows he'll never forget. When summer finally arrives, Layla hopes for a season of relaxation, but things are about to get complicated. The Duke is returning to Arvis sooner than expected. Mona speaks with Uncle Bill, wondering how many guests will flood the estate this time. She explains that the Duke isn't extending his service as planned, which is what her father wanted. Mona, now older, probably hopes for a grandson. She adds that the Duke will now be staying in Arvis permanently and jokes that it might be time for her to hang up her apron. Meanwhile, Layla prays she never crosses paths with the Duke again. She wonders if the last coin she tossed into the fountain not landing in the jug was some kind of omen, but she doesn't see it as a bad thing. Even if the Duke comes back to Arvis, she'll be in Rotzi with Kyle soon. And if things go well, she won't care whether he returns or not. At the same time, the Duke is preparing to return to Arvis. Time moves on, and soon there's a knock on the door at Uncle Bill's house. He opens it to find a postman standing there with a letter addressed to Layla. It's the same postman who had brought little Layla to Arvis years ago. Uncle Bill takes the letter and opens it, his eyes widening in surprise and joy. Layla has been accepted into a prestigious college, one so exclusive that even aristocrats struggle to get in. The postman congratulates him, then reminisces about that first day at the train station, helping little Layla into a carriage and bringing her to Uncle Bill. He admits he feels a bit emotional about the news and praises Bill for raising her so well. The postman asks where Layla is, and Bill answers that she's gone for a walk in the woods. The postman considers waiting to congratulate her in person, but decides he'll do it another time, as he has many more deliveries to make. They exchange their goodbyes, and the postman leaves. Uncle Bill sits quietly, staring at the acceptance letter. His mind drifts back to the day he first met Layla, a child who crossed the border with nothing but a letter and a single piece of paper bearing his name. He remembers all the days he spent with her and the joy she's brought him. Despite all the times he told himself to send her away, he never could. And now, here she was, on the verge of something greater than he had ever imagined for her. A rush of emotion overwhelms him, almost bringing him to tears. Soon, Layla returns, waving cheerfully. Seeing her, Uncle Bill wonders how much longer she plans to use the old bag he gave her when she first arrived. He asks when she'll finally let it go. She responds that it's still in good condition and that she wants to use it just a little longer, adding that she would feel lost without it. She tells him that along the way, she picked some raspberries and peaches. Bill hands her the letter and she reads it, her eyes widening in realization. She's been accepted into college. Emotions flood her, and Bill struggles to find the right words to offer a grand speech of congratulations. Layla moves closer, wrapping her arms around him in a hug, thanking him. He quickly reminds her that it's her hard work and success in the exams that earned this, not him. He doesn't deserve any credit, but she insists that he made it all possible. Bill quietly reflects, knowing deep in his heart that the small child who had come to Arvis had brought with her a lifetime of love from Levita. He wonders if she might burst into tears on such a joyous occasion, but he doesn't want that, even if they're tears of happiness. All he wants is to see her smile. All the care he's given to flowers and plants over the years doesn't compare to the love he's given her. She's become such an irreplaceable part of his life that no flower or plant holds more value than she does. He suggests they go to Rotzi together next weekend. Layla is surprised, and Bill explains that they need to pay her school fees and get her officially enrolled. He realizes the truth in a moment of clarity. He should have listened to Mona's nagging and been more aware of how to raise a girl. He should have taken her places, shown her beautiful things, and given her delicious food from the very beginning. He wonders why it's only now, as she's about to leave, that he's realizing he'll soon have to let her go. He tells himself that the reason for accompanying her is simple. It would be too dangerous to send her off alone with such a large sum of money, and he can't send her with Kyle since they aren't married yet. Layla hugs him quickly, and Bill notices she seems more excited about the trip than the acceptance letter itself. He reminds her that he always said she would grow into a fine adult, congratulating her once more. Later that evening, Layla notices Phoebe, the carrier pigeon, perched nearby. It brings a note from Kyle. In the letter, he mentions that he was right. They both got accepted into college. He expresses his happiness at receiving her note. Though he's eager to run to her place immediately, he knows it's late, so he'll come the next day instead. He also mentions that his mother wants to officially invite her to their house. Layla recalls his words about understanding her worries and knows that his mother likely had someone else in mind for him. She doubts that his mother is happy about their marriage yet. But in the end, the marriage is about the two of them and their lives together. Kyle truly believes that what matters most is how they feel. He reassures her that if they build a good life together and show happiness, his mother will eventually give her blessing. It will take time, but he believes it will happen. Layla, being honest with herself, admits that she's not entirely sure. She wonders if her courage was just recklessness, driven by the fear of losing Kyle. She questions whether her own desires and greed have taken over. The next day, the servants gather at the mansion to welcome the Duke. They excitedly talk about Layla's college acceptance, saying that everyone is talking about her. They share how happy they are for her, and she thanks them, feeling the warmth of their support. Soon, the conversation shifts to her marriage to Kyle. The servants ask when and where the wedding will take place, hopeful that it will be in Arvis. She's about to answer when the announcement comes. The Duke has arrived. Everyone straightens up as he steps out of the car. His grandmother greets him warmly, saying she feels reassured knowing he'll be staying in Arvis. His mother notices the yellow bird in the cage and asks if it's the same canary he took to Ratzi. He confirms it. She remarks how strange it is to think of him cherishing a bird so much, given that he's never even kept a dog before. His gaze immediately finds Layla, and a sense of something unspoken lingers in the air. That night, Layla gets ready to visit the Ettman house. She asks Kyle if she looks all right, and he nods, then asks if she's nervous. She admits that she is, explaining that it's a special day. This is the first time Mrs. Ettman has invited her over, and she wants to make a good impression, especially since the woman had opposed their marriage. Kyle reassures her, telling her she's more than enough just as she is. Layla checks with Uncle Bill, asking if she looks presentable. He agrees, telling her not to worry and reminding her that this isn't her first time meeting Mrs. Ettman. He encourages her to just be herself, as that will be more than enough. She notices that both Kyle and Uncle Bill have given her the same advice, and she thanks Kyle with a small smile. Soon they arrive at the Ettman house and Layla is welcomed warmly. She thanks Mrs. Ettman for inviting her. The mother asks what gift she brought, and Layla offers peach jam, with Kyle mentioning that she made it herself. Mrs. Ettman smiles and thanks her, and Layla thinks to herself that the mother seems pleased. Mrs. Ettman ushers her inside, and Kyle reassures her that there's nothing to worry about. The mother explains that she has prepared Layla's favorite dishes, hoping she'll enjoy them. Layla remarks on how kind she is, and Mrs. Ettman urges her to eat as much as she likes. Kyle smiles at her, and she smiles back. They begin chatting and laughing, enjoying the meal together. Meanwhile, Mrs. Ettman watches them and thinks to herself that the day she feared has finally come. Her son is engaged to someone like Layla. She recalls a conversation with her husband, wondering how he could approve of a marriage based on the words of a naive child. Mrs. Ettman is deeply concerned about what will happen now that Kyle is constantly pursuing Layla, proposing every chance he gets. She worries about the gossip this will cause. Her husband responds calmly, acknowledging her feelings. She interrupts, insisting that he doesn't truly understand, since he is the kind-hearted Dr. Ettman. He counters gently, saying that all he wants is for Kyle to marry someone he loves, and that Layla is a lovely girl. She admits that Layla is indeed a good girl, but argues that marriage is more than just love. It's real life. Approving the match, she fears, would harm their son's social standing. He remarks that the world is changing and that social status will soon hold less weight. She bites her lip, torn between worry and resignation. As the conversation continues, Mrs. Ettman finds herself thinking that her husband is wrong. Even if social status fades, something else will inevitably take its place, and ranks will never truly disappear. Just like Layla's roots, no matter how well she's done, her origins will never change, even with her acceptance into the Empire's top university. Layla notices Mrs. Ettman's gaze, and she quickly asks with a smile how the food is. Layla told her that it's delicious, but Mrs. Ettman can't help but feel resentment bubble up. She recalls how Layla's life has been one of loss and displacement. An orphan who moved from one relative to the next, finally ending up in Berg. She wishes Layla had come from a simple, respectable family. The fact that Layla is such a good girl makes her feel even more resentment. If only Layla had some flaw, some reason to dislike her, she thinks. But instead, she finds herself feeling petty, and it fills her with self-loathing. She realizes that she despises everything about Layla. The pretty face, the smile, the kind nature, the sharp mind, even the pitiful circumstances that brought her to this point. Meanwhile, Dr. Ettman is discussing Dr. Lauren at Ratzi University, noting that he is a renowned expert in aviation biology and that Layla should take his classes. He believes having such an esteemed mentor would be a great advantage for her, and Layla thanks him gratefully. Mrs. Etman then asks if Layla still watches the birds in the forest. Layla replies affirmatively, explaining that she keeps yearly records of both the local and migratory birds in Arvis. Mrs. Etman admits that it's fascinating, though the thought of Layla's ambitions stirs irritation in her. She doubts that someone like Layla could truly handle the responsibilities of being the lady of the Etman family. Kyle, always gentle and agreeable, seems like a poor match for someone like Layla. Mrs. Etman can't imagine him ever being happy with her as his wife. Determined to stop this, no matter the cost, she resolves that she must end this before it's too late. For her son's sake and for the family's future. After dinner, Layla is outside with Kyle. He comments on how perfect the evening is. Layla teases, asking if he's had too much wine. Kyle reassures her that he's fine and can still escort her home. He tells her he has a mental trick to always bring himself back into focus, the thought of Uncle Bill's shovel. He asks how her evening went, and she responds that she was happy his mother was so welcoming. Kyle admits that he was a little nervous too, since it was such an important and special day for him. He admits that he still feels like he's dreaming, and Layla wonders if it's the wine that's making him feel that way. Soon, he takes her hands, gazing at her intently, and moves closer. He gently touches her face, his lips nearing hers. Kyle leans in, ready to kiss her, but Layla instinctively places her hand over her lips to stop him. Surprised, he opens his eyes and steps back slightly. She explains, her voice tinged with hesitation, that it feels strange, almost as if they're doing something wrong. Kyle can't hide his shock. How can a simple kiss feel wrong between two people who are about to get married? He wonders if she truly understands how much courage it took for him to try this in the first place. Layla tries to explain herself, but Kyle points out that she always acts like she knows everything. When she asks what he means, he reminds her of their earlier conversation about reproduction, about how every living creature must go through it to survive. Layla looks away quietly, speechless, and he notices how confidently she had spoken earlier, as if she knew it all. She stammers, trying to find the right words, but eventually admits that she doesn't really know. Kyle notices a pattern. She often says that when things don't go the way she expects. Though they're engaged, their relationship still feels very much like that of close friends. Kyle sometimes wonders if they'll end up married without ever truly being lovers, but he doesn't allow himself to dwell on it. What he wants most is her heart, and he knows that rushing things or pushing her would only hurt her in the end. He asks her to look at him, teasing gently that she doesn't know anything about kissing. Layla quietly accepts that, nodding in agreement. Then, with careful patience, Kyle presses his lips to her smooth forehead. They hold each other, close and warm. And thankfully, Layla accepts this small but meaningful compromise. As he breathes in deeply, the cool air around them carries the soft, sweet scent of roses. He recognizes it instantly. It's Layla's scent, and the moment feels serene and calm, a fleeting peace between them. Since Duke Herhart's returned to the estate and his full focus on his family's affairs, it's only natural that his fiancée would spend her time in Arvis. During this visit, Layla's name quickly becomes the talk of the town. People are curious, asking if it's really true that she's been accepted into college. Mrs. Dowager confirms it, proudly adding that Layla is a truly remarkable young woman, and that Mr. Bill is determined to let her attend. The Duke's mother comments that Layla must be incredibly fortunate to have someone like Mr. Bill supporting her, and that in marrying into a family so far above her station, it's truly a once-in-a-lifetime stroke of fortune. Claudine, overhearing the conversation, is surprised to hear that Layla is engaged to the doctor's son. Her mind briefly flashes back to the party where Layla had attended with Kyle as her partner. Despite her surprise, Claudine admits, almost to herself, that it is a relief to know such good fortune has come to Layla. Grandma Dowager, upon hearing the news, decides to invite Layla for a cup of tea. She calls for her while Layla is in the garden helping Uncle Bill. Layla walks over, hesitant at first, but eventually takes a seat when invited. Grandma Dowager warmly congratulates her on her remarkable achievement and humbly expresses gratitude for all the support and guidance Layla has received from Mr. Bill. Then, the elderly lady asks if Layla is from Levita. Layla explains that her mother was from Levita, while her father was from Berg. Grandma Dowager remarks that in that case, they share roots from distinguished places. Claudine watches quietly, her thoughts drifting to her own family's background. Grandma Dowager comes from a long line of prestigious marquises, a relative of the Emperor of Berg, and her mother hails from the royal family of Levita. Her own lineage is far more noble than Layla's. Yet, Grandma Dowager treats Layla with warmth and familiarity, speaking to her as though they were equals. Meanwhile, Grandma Dowager asks what Layla would like and mentions that Mr. Bill practically raised her as his own daughter. She adds that she would like to give a small gift to celebrate her achievement. Layla is surprised by the gesture but intends to politely decline, until she notices Claudine has already announced the Duke's arrival. He approaches, and Layla rises, bowing respectfully to greet him. Claudine, already standing, notes that he's returned earlier than expected. The Duke explains that his meeting ended sooner than anticipated. Grandma Dowager shares the good news about Layla with him and mentions that she invited her over to congratulate her personally. The Duke listens quietly, his eyes fixed on Layla, as if something unsaid hangs between them. If you want to know what happens next, drop a comment saying, "Layla," and I'll bring you part 3 as soon as I can. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you won't miss the next upload when it goes live. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next recap.